You're just a kid I'm feeding. You never contributed anything." That's what Madison screamed at me in court. Her voice was full of venom, lips curled like she'd won something. The judge's gavel hovered midair, seconds away from finalizing everything. And right before it all came crashing down, I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Before that, Your Honor, there's one thing I must explain." The whole courtroom gasped. The judge froze, and my story began. Let me take you back to the moment the thread of lies began to unravel. It was a Thursday night, and I remember it because it was my turn to cook, and I burned the lasagna. Madison came home late, again, dressed like she stepped off the set of a music video. Tight black dress, heels she hadn't worn in years, makeup like she was trying to impress the devil himself. I asked her, "Where have you been?" She kissed me on the cheek like I was her dad or a damn priest and muttered something about girls' night out and how I shouldn't worry so much. But I did worry, because she hadn't called. She hadn't texted. And most of all, she smelled like sandalwood cologne and leather, not perfume. I sat on the edge of our bed that night, staring at her phone charging on the nightstand. That screen was a glowing window to hell, and I swear to God I almost didn't look. But curiosity doesn't knock. It kicks the damn door open. Password was her birthday. Figures. She never thought I paid attention. The messages were all there. A guy named JD. Not saved as James or John, just JD, like some mysterious brooding character in a cheap romance novel. Last night was insane. I can still taste you. Next time, let's not leave scratches. I had to cover them up. My fingers went numb. I remember dropping the phone like it was made of fire. My mouth was dry, my chest tight. And the woman I had been building a life with for 6 years was in the shower humming a Dua Lipa song like she didn't just rip my heart out and grind it into hotel sheets with some other man. I didn't yell. I didn't storm in and confront her. I sat there, breathing like I was learning how to do it for the first time. Because that was the moment everything I thought I knew died. The next day, I played dumb. She told me she loved me before she left for work. I smiled, kissed her forehead, packed her lunch. And the moment she left, I started digging. That lunch. I replaced it with a hidden GPS tracker under her seat, courtesy of my buddy Kyle who worked security for a tech firm. The car didn't go to her office. It went to a loft downtown, one I didn't pay rent on. She stayed there for 4 hours. No meetings, no emails, no calls, just JD. I drove there the next day, parked down the block, waited. At 3:17 p.m., she walked out with him. Big guy, tan, tattoos that said, "I've done time," and a smirk like he knew he was violating a sacred vow. They kissed. Not just a kiss, that kiss. The kind she used to give me when she couldn't wait to pull me into bed. And I sat in my car gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles bled, listening to the soft rumble of the engine and the roaring silence of betrayal. She came home that night and acted like nothing happened. Cooked dinner, laughed at my jokes, asked me to rub her feet. And all I could think was, "You're AF *ing actress. And I'm done being your stage. **. That was the day I started building my case. And what she didn't know was, when she sneered in court and called me useless, she was stepping into a trap I had been constructing for months. Brick by deceitful brick. Because I wasn't useless. I was patient. And patience is the sharpest blade of all. I waited 3 more weeks before I said a word. Every night, Madison came home a little later, kissed me a little less, and made up bigger lies. We're launching a campaign. Jenna's mom is sick. There was an accident on I-95. I nodded through every excuse like a dumb, obedient husband. But during the day, I was building. Screenshots, bank statements, credit card charges. She wasn't just cheating. She was funding her little love story with our joint account. Fancy dinners, hotels, Uber rides across town while I sat at home reheating leftovers. It wasn't just betrayal. It was robbery. I didn't sleep much. At night, I'd lie in bed beside her, listening to her breathing, wondering how someone could be so warm one moment and so cold the next. Her skin didn't feel like my wife's anymore. It felt borrowed, like she was wearing someone else's personality just to blend in. One morning, I placed a hidden camera in the kitchen. Just one, just to confirm what I already knew. That same evening, while I was at the gym, she brought him in. They didn't even wait to get upstairs. She shoved him against the counter and kissed him like he was oxygen. They laughed, they drank from my whiskey, and then they went upstairs. That night, I watched the footage with shaking hands, heart pounding, chest burning. He was wearing my shirt, the one she used to sleep in when she missed me. She told him this house felt like a museum full of regrets. I heard her whisper, "I don't even look at him the same anymore." And then they disappeared off camera. I didn't cry. I didn't throw things. I didn't scream. I unplugged the camera. I saved the video. And I waited for Friday. She came downstairs wearing that red dress I bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago. "I'm heading out with the girls," she said, grabbing her purse. I smiled. "Tell JD." I said hi. Her whole body stiffened. For the first time in months, she looked at me like I wasn't invisible. "What did you say?" I walked over, calm, collected, placed a flash drive on the table. "You left your little movie on my counter." Her hands trembled. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I'd seen that look before, back when we got robbed at a gas station during a road trip. That's the face you make when you know you're caught, and there's no way out. Then came the lies. "It's not what you think. He means nothing." I was drunk. "It only happened once." "It didn't mean anything. It's your fault. You were never present. You made me feel alone. I needed to feel alive." "He listens to me. He appreciates me." She tossed every rotten excuse she could come up with, like one of them might land and kill the truth. I didn't flinch. I asked her one question. "Are you in love with him?" She didn't answer. That was the only answer I needed. She moved out the next week, tail tucked, reputation collapsing behind her. Told her friends I was abusive. Told her mom I monitored her every move. Told her sister that I had anger issues. Lies. All of them. But she knew the truth couldn't keep up with the show she was performing. And then came the divorce trial. She strutted into court like a peacock. Hair perfect, nails fresh, sunglasses like she was stepping onto a movie set. Sat across from me with a smug little grin. Her lawyer opened with, "My client has been the sole provider and emotional backbone of this marriage." I almost laughed. She looked the judge dead in the eyes and spat. "He's just a kid I'm feeding. He never contributed anything." The courtroom buzzed. I clenched my jaw, waited for the judge to begin the ruling. "Before that, Your Honor," I said calmly, standing up, "there's one thing I must explain." Her face went pale. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out the USB. The courtroom watched the screen. JD kissing her neck in my kitchen. Her laughing as she poured whiskey. Her words, crystal clear. "I don't even look at him the same anymore." You could have heard a pin drop. The judge turned to her, stunned. "Mrs. Coleman, would you like to respond?" She didn't. She couldn't. Her lips trembled, and for the first time since this hell began, I felt peace. She sat there like a statue, frozen. That perfect mouth of hers, the one that used to spit sugar and poison in the same breath, couldn't form a single word. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering frantically, but she just blinked. The judge took off his glasses, stared down at her like he was trying to remember if he'd ever seen a more pathetic excuse of a performance. I sat down slowly, didn't smile, didn't gloat, just looked straight ahead as if I hadn't just dropped a grenade on her entire version of reality. The judge took a deep breath. "Given the new evidence provided by Mr. Coleman," he said slowly, his voice firm, "I will be revisiting the division of assets, spousal support, and custody arrangements." Her lawyer jumped up. "Your Honor, we were unaware of this material." "Sit down," the judge snapped. "You'll have time to respond in writing. For now, court is adjourned until I review this footage thoroughly." Bang. Gavel. Done. As people stood and began to file out, I felt her eyes burning into me. I turned, finally, and met her gaze. And in that moment, I saw it. The collapse. That smug, twisted little world she'd built for herself crumbled in real time. The affairs, the lies, the performance, gone. She mouthed something. I think it was, "How dare you?" I just blinked at her and walked out. Outside the courtroom, the air felt lighter. Kyle was waiting for me, leaning on my car. "Dude," he said, grinning. That was legendary. I didn't say anything, just leaned against the door and looked up at the sky. For the first time in months, I wasn't pretending. I wasn't smiling through pain. I wasn't loving someone who was stabbing me in the back. I was free, but the freedom didn't feel how I expected. It wasn't joyful. It wasn't satisfying. It was hollow, like getting rescued from drowning only to realize you were the one who jumped in the first place. The days that followed were a blur of paperwork, calls, and silence. My house was empty. She didn't even take her things. Just left them like they meant nothing. Clothes still in the closet. Makeup in the bathroom. A wine glass still on the nightstand, half full. That was Madison, never finishing anything unless it benefited her. I kept waiting for her to come by, to pick up her crap, to scream, cry, beg, threaten. But nothing. Instead, she sent her sister to grab the essentials. Her sister, who once cried at our wedding, couldn't even look me in the eye. She just said, "I'm sorry, Liam," and packed the bare minimum. 3 days later, I got a text from her. "I never wanted it to end like this. I was hurting. You changed. I didn't mean to hurt you." I stared at the screen, thumbs hovering over the keyboard. I didn't reply. Because here's the thing, she did mean to hurt me. Every lie was a choice. Every night with him was a decision. Every insult, every betrayal, every manipulation, calculated. Intentional. I knew she expected me to blow up, to beg, to threaten, but I wasn't giving her that. I already took everything that mattered. Her mask. She could keep JD. Let him taste the poison she hides behind that perfect smile. Let him hear the same lies, over and over, until he starts to question his own memory. Me? I was done playing husband to a villain in a rom-com she directed in her head. A week later, I saw her again. I was grabbing coffee downtown, same spot I used to wait for her on Friday afternoons when we'd go home together. I guess part of me hoped I wouldn't run into her, but the universe has a twisted sense of humor. She walked in wearing sunglasses too big for her face, and that smug air like the world still owed her something. And right behind her was JD, tattoos, tight shirt, smug as ever. He kissed her neck as they ordered like they were the only two people who mattered. I could have left, could have turned around and walked out, but I didn't. I stood there, straight-backed, coffee in hand, and waited until she noticed me. She did. Took her 3 seconds. Her smile froze. Eyes flicked up, then down, and then she looked at him, like she needed to act. She laughed a little too loud, touched his arm a little too obviously, then whispered something in his ear. He turned around like a pit bull ready to pick a fight. I gave him a single nod. Not out of respect, out of warning. She walked past me, pretending not to care. But as she did, she stopped for just a second and said, "Hope you're enjoying the show." Because I am. I took a slow sip of my coffee and said without looking at her, "Enjoy it while it lasts. That spotlight burns, Maddie." She didn't respond, just kept walking. He didn't even realize the show had already started falling apart. See, what she didn't know was that JD had a girlfriend. A real one he never broke up with. A girl named Kayla, who messaged me the night of the court hearing. She sent me screenshots, voice notes, even a video. Turns out Madison was the side dish, and she had no idea. So I forwarded the package. Anonymous account. No message. Just a little taste of what betrayal feels like. Revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes silence is sharper. The next 2 weeks were quiet. She stopped posting selfies with him. Her stories turned from cocktails and sunsets to vague quotes about growth and healing. She even posted a throwback of our wedding with the caption, "Not everything is what it seems." No, Madison. It never was. I got a call from her mother the next day. "Liam, can we talk?" She sounded exhausted. "Beaten." I said, "There's nothing left to talk about." Then came the late-night text. "I miss what we had. You were the only person who ever really knew me." And maybe I did. But that version of her died the night I saw her wrapped around another man in my kitchen. So I did something I never thought I would. I blocked her. Phone, email, socials, all of it. Not to hurt her, but to finally stop hurting myself. Because no matter how many times I replayed the betrayal, the lies, the gaslighting, I kept coming back to one truth. She never loved me the way I loved her. And now? Now I don't need her love to survive. Because I'm building something new. Alone, but whole. 2 months passed. I didn't hear from her again. Not directly, anyway. But people talk. Her name kept showing up like a bad echo in rooms I didn't expect. At the gym, a buddy casually mentioned he saw her alone at a bar, staring into her drink like it owed her answers. A friend of a friend told me she showed up at a party in that same red dress. Only this time the zipper was broken, and her mascara was running down her face before midnight. JD was long gone. Apparently, the day after I sent Kayla that little gift package, he vanished. Blocked Madison on everything. Moved out of the loft they shared. Yeah, turns out she was paying his rent. The guy she cheated on me with was living on my money and lying to her too. Poetic. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. But then I remembered how she'd kiss me goodbye with his scent still on her skin. I spent my nights rebuilding. Not just my place, myself. I picked up woodworking again, turned the spare room into a workshop. Cal helped me install a punching bag in the garage. There were still moments, flashes of her laugh, her perfume, the sound of her heels on the stairs that made my chest tighten. But they came and went like smoke. No longer thick enough to choke me. And then came the message. Not from her. From her lawyer. She was challenging the divorce settlement. Not because she needed money. Not because she cared. But because losing wasn't something Madison could accept. She wanted to drag me back into court just to see if she could win something. Anything. It was like inviting a snake back into your home just to see if it could still hiss. I called my lawyer. We met. We prepared. But this time, I didn't feel scared. I felt focused. The courtroom was colder than last time. She wore all black like she was mourning. Maybe she was. Maybe she finally realized she wasn't in control anymore. She didn't look at me. Didn't speak. The judge reviewed the documents quietly. Her lawyer tried to spin the same tired story about financial imbalance, about emotional trauma, about narcissistic control. It was laughable. My lawyer stayed calm, precise, professional. And then came my turn. I stood up, handed the judge a printed timeline, color-coded with receipts, video transcripts, dates, and screenshots. It told a story so airtight you could have put it in a museum. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I simply laid out the facts like a surgeon. When I finished, I sat down. The courtroom was dead silent. The judge looked at her, then at me. "This case is closed," he said firmly. "All challenges are dismissed. The original ruling stands." I exhaled slowly. Not in relief, just release. She stood up, brushed off her coat, and finally looked at me. But her eyes weren't full of anger anymore. They were hollow, like she didn't recognize the man sitting across from her. And maybe she didn't, because the man she married died the day she gave herself to someone else. Outside, it was raining. She stood under the overhang, waiting for her Uber. I walked past her without a word. She called out, "Liam." I paused but didn't turn. "I thought I'd be happy without you," she said quietly. "But I don't even know who I am anymore." I didn't say anything. She wasn't looking for forgiveness. She was looking for permission to fall apart. But that wasn't mine to give. I walked to my car, turned on the engine, drove home, not to an empty house, to a quiet one. And for the first time, it felt like peace. A few days later, I found a letter in my mailbox. Not an email, not a text, an actual letter, written in her handwriting. I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. I didn't know what I expected. An apology? A confession? A last desperate attempt to claw back into my life. It started with, "Liam, I don't know where to begin," and ended with, "I hope you find someone who sees you the way I never could." The middle was a tornado of excuses, half-admissions, and twisted memories. She talked about how lost she'd felt, how she never meant to hurt me, how she had been spiraling long before JD ever showed up. She said she missed the way I looked at her, like she was worth something. That being with me made her feel safe, and that she hadn't felt safe since I left. But I hadn't left. She'd pushed me, shoved me out with lie after lie until I couldn't recognize myself anymore. There was one line that stuck with me, though. "I keep waiting for the day you'll hate me. But you don't. And that scares me more than anything." She was right. I didn't hate her. I pitied her. Because hate gives someone space in your heart. She didn't have that anymore. Still, I kept the letter. Not out of sentiment, but as a reminder of how deep I sank trying to save someone who was already walking away. That weekend, Kyle dragged me to a small cookout his sister was hosting. Said I needed to get out of the cave. I almost didn't go, but something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe the quiet boredom of healing, said yes. There, in the middle of the backyard, laughing over a game of cornhole, was someone new. Her name was Rachel. She didn't ask me about my divorce. She didn't press when I said I'd had a rough few months. She just talked, listened, smiled with her whole face. There was no performance, no agenda, just warmth. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I didn't feel like I had to be someone else. We exchanged numbers. I didn't expect anything. But the next morning, she texted, "Hope your coffee's strong and your heart stronger." I smiled. Madison used to text me things like, "Pick up oat milk," or "Don't forget the rent." Rachel sent words that didn't feel like reminders. They felt like care. Over the next few weeks, we kept talking. Just talking. No pressure. No speed. She wasn't a replacement. She was a new chapter. And I wasn't looking to rewrite history. I was writing something new from scratch. One night, I told her everything. Not to unload, but to be honest. I told her about the kitchen camera, about the court, about the way betrayal feels like drowning with your eyes wide open. She didn't flinch. She didn't judge. She just said, "You survived. That's enough." That night, I slept without waking up once. It didn't fix everything. The scars were still there. But scars don't hurt. They remind. And I needed that reminder. Because there's a strange kind of power in surviving the worst version of love. You learn what not to tolerate. You learn that peace is worth more than passion if passion comes poisoned. I haven't seen Madison in months. But the last I heard, she moved back in with her mom. No job. No JD. Just silence. Funny how loud silence can be when you're used to performing for applause. Me? I don't need an audience anymore. A month later, I got a message from an unknown number. No name. Just a single sentence. "I need to see you. Please." I stared at it for a full minute. My chest didn't tighten. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't angry or curious or sad. I was calm. I replied, "No." That was it. One word. No punctuation. No emotion. She tried again 2 days later. Called twice. I didn't answer. Left a voicemail. Her voice cracked halfway through it. Said she was in a bad place. Said she needed closure. Said she still dreamed about me. That the silence was killing her. That she wanted to talk just one last time. But I had nothing left to say. Closure isn't something someone gives you. It's what you give yourself when the other person runs out of lies. I deleted the message. Didn't even listen to the rest of it. Later that week, Rachel came over. She brought pizza, wore one of those oversized hoodies that made her look like comfort personified. We didn't talk about Madison. We didn't need to. The chapter had closed so loudly, it didn't deserve an epilogue. But while Rachel was grabbing drinks from the kitchen, I looked at her and thought, this is how it's supposed to feel. Not like a high, not like a fix, but like finally stepping into sunlight after years of cold. We sat on the couch, legs tangled, some old action movie playing in the background. She turned to me and asked, "Do you regret it?" I didn't answer right away. I thought about the years I gave to someone who never really saw me. The nights I stayed up wondering what I did wrong. The mornings I made breakfast for a woman who was probably texting another man under the table. The therapy sessions. The court. The betrayal. Then I looked at Rachel. "I don't regret surviving it," I said. She nodded. Said nothing else. That's what I liked about her. She never tried to fix the broken parts of me. She just let me breathe. The next morning, I got served. Madison filed for a restraining order. I was stunned. Confused. But not panicked. I called my lawyer. He was already ahead of it. "It won't stick," he said. "This is desperation, not danger." Apparently, she told the court I had harassed her, sent her threatening emails, followed her, made her feel unsafe. All lies. I hadn't contacted her once since that message. Hadn't been near her, hadn't even spoken her name. This wasn't about protection, it was about punishment. She couldn't stand the fact that I'd moved on, that she no longer lived rent-free in my head. The judge saw right through it. Dismissed it in minutes. Called it an abuse of the legal system. Madison didn't even show up. That was the last straw. I changed my number. Closed the door. Blocked every last path she could use to crawl back in. Not out of fear. Out of peace. Because the truth is, Madison wasn't just a mistake. She was a lesson. A brutal, messy, unforgettable one. And I needed it. Because now I know what I'll never settle for again. 3 months passed. No more letters. No more phone calls. No sudden messages in the middle of the night. Just silence. The kind that finally felt like peace, not punishment. The kind that lets you breathe without flinching every time your phone buzzes. Rachel and I kept things slow. Honest. Real. She never asked me to forget the past. She just gave me a reason not to live in it. One evening, we were sitting on my porch watching the rain. She had her feet on my lap, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands like she always did when she got cold. The sky was gray, the air smelled like pine and wet pavement. "I think I'm ready to say it out loud," I told her quietly. She looked at me, waiting. I don't love her anymore. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some emotional breakthrough. It just settled into the air like truth. She didn't speak, just squeezed my hand and leaned her head on my shoulder. That's the thing about real love. It doesn't need fireworks to feel alive. Sometimes it's soft, steady, safe. I'd been chasing storms for so long I forgot how good sunlight felt. A few days later, I found an old shoebox in the back of the closet. Madison's photos. Our wedding album. The honeymoon folder she once swore she'd never delete. I sat there for a minute, staring at them. That smile. That sparkle in her eyes. It was all a performance. She knew how to play perfect, like it was second nature. But now I could see it. The cracks. The way her hand never really held mine tight. The way her eyes always wandered to the lens instead of me. I burned the photos that night. Not out of anger. Out of mercy for myself. It was time to stop carrying ghosts. And in that moment, I realized something. She never broke me. She just showed me what I was made of. You survive betrayal not by forgetting it, but by becoming someone it can never touch again. Now when people ask, I tell them the truth. Yeah, I went through hell. Yeah, I gave my heart to someone who buried it. Yeah, I lost pieces of myself in the fire. But I came back stronger. Sharper. Clearer. I learned that love without respect is just a pretty prison. That forgiveness is more about freeing yourself than excusing them. And that walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. My advice: don't wait for the apology that will never come. Don't waste time trying to fix someone who thrives on breaking you. And don't ever confuse drama for passion. Real love isn't loud. It's consistent. It shows up. And it stays. Madison taught me that, by being everything love is not. And for that, I thank her. From a distance. Forever. You ever hear someone say, "The devil wears lipstick"? Yeah, mine wore crimson red. Her name was Ashley, and she knew how to weaponize charm like a loaded pistol. It was exactly 2:08 a.m. when I woke up to the faint glow of my phone screen flickering on the nightstand. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The kind of dream where you feel half drowned in confusion. But no, it was real. Ashley was bent over my phone, her long nails tapping away like a hacker in a spy movie. She froze when she saw me watching. "Just checking the weather," she muttered. "At 2 in the goddamn morning?" I didn't argue. Not then. Not right away. Because in that split second, my gut told me something my brain wasn't ready to handle yet. I played dumb. Rolled over. But I didn't sleep a damn second after that. Something was off. Way off. The next morning, Ashley acted sweeter than syrup, pancakes, coffee, that fake little humming she did when she wanted to seem innocent. But when she kissed me goodbye before heading to yoga, I noticed she didn't take her mat. What she did take, though, was my attention. Because the moment she left, I opened my banking app. Or tried to. Password error. Try again. Then I remembered the one thing Ashley never knew. I had a second, hidden account. A little nest egg I kept for emergencies, stashed away in a completely separate banking app. I opened it. Balance: $38.56. I nearly choked. That account had just over $500,000. That's when the adrenaline hit. I checked the transaction log. One withdrawal after another. Wire transfers, travel bookings, luxury rentals. And all of them routed through my phone. My fingerprint. She'd somehow installed spyware or a banking app clone and siphoned my credentials. I sat there, frozen, phone in hand, staring at the empty shell of my life. But it got worse. So much worse. 2 days later, she came back. Tanned. Glowing. Laughing. She swung open the front door like a returning queen, dragging a suitcase that probably cost more than our couch. "God, it was amazing," she said, tossing her heels across the room. "The Maldives? Beyond magical." I didn't say a word. Not yet. She looked me dead in the eyes, smirking, then said, "Thanks to your mobile, I really enjoyed spending your $500,000. I blinked. A smile broke across my face. And then, I laughed. Not the kind of laugh that says, "I'm okay." The kind that makes your skin crawl. Because what she didn't know was that the account she emptied, it wasn't mine. Not really. I had linked my fake app to an old burner account, one I used to test bank integrations for a tech firm I worked with years ago. A ghost account. The real money? Safely untouched. "Hope you enjoyed the Monopoly money," I said calmly. Her smirk faltered. "What? You heard me. You and your boyfriend just funded a 5-star vacation with digital Play-Doh." Her jaw twitched. "You're lying." I pulled out a flash drive and dropped it on the kitchen counter. Full transaction trail. Every IP, every login, every unauthorized attempt. I already sent it to the bank's fraud department. And guess what? That little stunt of yours? Federal crime. Ashley's face twisted. But instead of apologizing, she scoffed. "Oh, please. Like anyone's going to believe your pathetic boy story." You're just mad because someone finally beat you at your own little games. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't even pretending. Ashley had never loved me. She loved my money, my house, my name. I was a walking, talking ATM with a heartbeat. And now that she thought she drained me dry, the mask dropped completely. You should have seen his hands, she whispered, suddenly shifting. So much stronger than yours. She wanted me to snap, to lose it, to give her grounds. But I just nodded, cold and calm. You're going to wish you'd never come back here, Ashley. Because this wasn't just betrayal. This was war. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the money. Hell, the money was safe. But because I looked into the eyes of the woman I married and saw nothing. No guilt. No flicker of hesitation. Just venom, polished and perfumed. Ashley took a long, steaming shower that night, humming like she didn't just try to rob me blind. I sat in the kitchen, lights off, phone in hand, replaying everything. The deleted messages, the late-night calls from blocked numbers, the sudden new lingerie she claimed she bought on sale. I should have seen it sooner. But love makes you blind, and trust turns that blindness into a coma. When she finally came out, wrapped in a towel, she looked at me like I was some distant memory, like a guest overstaying his welcome. What? Still crying over your fake bank account, she sneered. I stood up. Who is he? She blinked, smiled. You don't really want to know. I do. She rolled her eyes, strolled over to the fridge like we were just two roommates having a mild disagreement. His name's Tyler. You remember him, right? The guy who fixed our garage door last summer. She laughed. Guess he fixed more than just that. My fists clenched before I realized it. But I didn't move. You let that guy into our house. You let him touch you in our bed. She shrugged. What can I say? He knows how to handle things. You? You just overthink everything. It wasn't even the cheating that burned me alive. It was her pride. She wore her betrayal like a medal. And that smug look on her face? That was when something inside me cracked. I walked past her, straight to the bedroom, opened my closet, and pulled out the safe. She was still at the fridge when she noticed what I was doing. You're not seriously thinking of kicking me out, she said, closing the door with her hip. You think you can just pack my life into a box and walk away? No, I said, unlocking the safe. I'm not packing your life. I'm securing mine. Inside the safe wasn't just cash. It was everything she never knew I kept. Notarized papers, copies of our prenup, and a hidden camera I'd planted months ago when I first started suspecting she wasn't just going to yoga. I tossed the flash drive back in and closed it. When I turned around, she was staring at me, her smirk finally gone. What's on that? She asked. I didn't answer. Her voice raised. What did you record? Still nothing. She lunged forward, tried to grab the safe, but I stepped aside and let her fall to the ground. She screamed, a loud, shrill sound that echoed through the hall. You're a psycho. You think anyone's gonna believe you over me? I'll say you hit me. I'll tell the cops you've been spying on me. I looked down at her. I have been spying on you, Ashley. That's the whole point. She stilled. The emails, the voice recordings, the footage. You weren't even careful. You got sloppy. Drunk. You left your panties in the guest bathroom. You think I wouldn't notice? She backed up slowly, standing now, her confidence shaking. I was gonna leave you anyway, she said suddenly, trying to regain ground. You're boring. A coward. I need a real man. I smiled. And now you'll have plenty of time to find one. Alone. She stormed toward me like she wanted to slap the soul out of my face, but I caught her wrist midair. Try that again, I warned. And I'll make sure your boyfriend gets a personal call from my lawyer. He'll love what I've got on that drive. Fraud, conspiracy, unauthorized access to a federal account. You think he's ready to lose his job over a little midnight fling? Her eyes widened. Finally. Fear. You wouldn't. I already did. Her breath hitched. You think I didn't trace every transaction? Every GPS ping? You stole from me. But worse, you mocked me. That's the part one won't forgive. Silence. Then she walked away. No tears. No apology. She just walked into the bedroom and shut the door like we just had a minor spat about dinner. But I didn't go after her. I sat back down at the kitchen table and stared out the window. There was a breeze picking up, rustling the trees. It reminded me that everything moves eventually. Nothing stays still. Not even betrayal. It blows in, it shakes your world, and it always leaves wreckage behind. But wreckage can be rebuilt. And I wasn't done yet. I barely slept again, and and by the time the sun cracked through the blinds, the house felt different, colder, emptier, like the walls knew what she'd done. Ashley stayed in the bedroom until noon. When she finally walked out, her hair was still messy, mascara smudged under her eyes like she'd been crying. But she wasn't crying for me. That woman cried for herself. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, legs crossed, phone in hand. Probably texting Tyler. Or maybe her backup plan if he bailed. "You're really going to go through with this?" she asked, like she couldn't believe I had the audacity. "Yeah. You're going to ruin my life over a little mistake?" A little mistake. That's what she called draining $500,000 and sleeping with the garage guy. That's what she called planting spyware on her husband's phone while he was asleep. I didn't answer her. She tapped her nails on the table. "You really think people are going to feel sorry for you? Some stiff in a tie, crying because his wife found a better man." I looked up. "Better? He's a part-time handyman with a record for assault." She paused, blinked. "I found his file," I added. "You really don't think I'd look up the guy who was in my house while I was at work? The guy who left beer cans in my garage? You think that's your upgrade? He's more of a man than you'll ever be," she hissed. That one stung more than I wanted to admit. Ashley stood, walked toward me like a storm. She leaned down close. The scent of her perfume still familiar, still poison. "You're pathetic, Liam. Always so careful. So safe. You think money makes you powerful, but it makes you weak. That's why I took it. Because you'd never fight back. You just absorb it. Like a sponge." I stared her straight in the face. "You're right. I did absorb it. For months. But I'm not a sponge anymore." She laughed, threw her head back like it was all a show to her. "Oh, so what now? You gonna throw me out?" "No," I said. "You're going to walk out. Today. On your own. Because the moment you walk back in, the restraining order kicks in." The blood drained from her face. "I filed it this morning," I continued. "Emergency protection order. Cited financial abuse, digital surveillance, psychological manipulation. The court approved it an hour ago. Police have a copy. If you're within 50 feet of this house after today, you're in violation." She tried to speak, lips parting like she had a comeback loaded and ready, but nothing came out. "You're insane," she finally managed. "Insane enough to survive you." Ashley stormed off without another word. I heard the closet doors slam, drawers opening, the sound of her tossing clothes into a bag. I stayed at the table, not moving, not reacting. She passed by me 20 minutes later, dragging a suitcase, eyes glassy but pride intact. She paused at the door. "You'll regret this," she said, voice low. "I already regret meeting you." Then she left. Just like that. The silence afterward was the loudest thing I've ever heard. Not even the fridge humming. No birds outside. Just the creak of wood under my feet when I finally stood up. I walked into the bedroom, stripped the sheets off our bed, opened every window. Let the wind sweep through like a reset. The scent of her still lingered on the pillow, and I hated that I noticed. But what really hit me, the punch that finally folded my knees, was the realization that I loved her. Not just the version I thought she was, but the woman I imagined every time she looked at me like I mattered. She never existed. And that grief? That was the hardest part. Not the betrayal, not the money, but mourning someone who was never real. I didn't go to work for 3 days. Didn't answer calls. My phone buzzed nonstop, messages from friends, a couple from Ashley's mother asking why Ashley suddenly moved out, and one voicemail from Ashley herself. Just 10 seconds of silence, followed by a sigh and the sound of a car engine. I deleted it. On the 4th day, I stood in the garage and stared at the empty shelf where Tyler's toolbox once sat. The bastard had left it behind one afternoon and came back the next day with Ashley to pick it up. That was their first real moment alone in my house. I remember offering them both water, watching them from the kitchen, thinking nothing of it. God, I was blind. I opened the cabinet, grabbed a bottle of bourbon I'd been saving since my promotion, and poured a drink at noon. No glass, just straight from the bottle. Midway through the burn, my laptop dinged. Email from my lawyer. Subject: confirmed recording. I clicked the file and watched. It was silent footage from the guest bedroom camera I'd planted weeks ago, barely bigger than a button, hidden behind the curtain rod. I saw her, and him, laughing, drinking, stripping, climbing onto the bed like they owned the place. He whispered something into her ear. She laughed. Loud. She didn't even close the door. I watched the whole thing. Every damn second. Not because I needed proof, but because I wanted to kill the version of her that still lived in my head. The one who made coffee with a sleepy smile. The one who cried during sad movies and kissed me when I was sick. That version had to die, and that video was the bullet. I spent the rest of the day gathering what was left of her. Clothes, jewelry, letters, her box of old cards, and movie tickets. I dumped it all into the trash. The final piece was our wedding photo. She looked like an angel that day, eyes bright with lies. I burned it. The next night, I ran into Tyler. Yeah, at a gas station, of all places. I was paying for cigarettes I didn't even smoke anymore, and there he was, standing by pump 6, leaning against a black Dodge Challenger, Ashley in the passenger seat. He saw me, smirked. Ashley didn't look over. She just pulled out her phone. He walked up to me like we were old friends. Liam, right? I didn't respond. She told me you were a little wound up. Thought maybe you'd cool off by now. He stepped closer. Too close. Listen, man. No hard feelings. I mean, if she wasn't happy. I hit him. Not hard enough to knock him out. Just enough to make his nose bleed and his ego shrink. The clerk inside yelled something, and Tyler lunged at me, but I was already in the car. Drove off with my heart hammering so loud I thought it'd crack my ribs. That night, I stared at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize the man looking back. Unshaven, hollow-eyed, drenched in silence. But something shifted. I realized I wasn't broken. I was just unfinished. Everything she'd done, everything she stole, every night she spent in my bed with someone else's name on her lips, it didn't define me. It tried to break me. And yeah, maybe it cracked a few parts. But I was still standing. And that scared her more than anything. Because I didn't crumble. I started writing. Not just journaling. Letters to myself. Lists. Plans. I booked sessions with a therapist. Bought new sheets. Changed the locks. Erased every password she ever knew. I even started sleeping again. Real sleep. The kind where you don't wake up panicked, sweating over what she's doing now or who she's doing it with. I didn't care anymore. Because for the first time in years, I was alone. But not lonely. It was about 3 weeks after Ashley left when her lawyer reached out. She wanted a conversation, which was code for, she figured out the money wasn't real and now she's panicking. My attorney advised me to ignore the bait. Let her stew in her own greed. But Ashley wasn't the type to stew quietly. That night, around 9 p.m., my doorbell rang. I checked the camera. It was her, dressed to impress in some tight black dress that screamed desperation more than style. I didn't answer. She rang again, then started knocking. I cracked the door, but kept the chain on. She smiled like nothing had happened. Can we talk? Court's in 2 weeks. You can talk there. Her face dropped a bit. You're seriously going through with it? I was serious the moment you chose him. She scoffed. Oh, come on, Liam. You know we were already falling apart. No, I said. You were just falling into someone else's bed. She didn't flinch. You think you're better than me? I think I'm not a thief. That did it. Her face twisted into that familiar mask, fake pity laced with pure venom. I made one mistake, she said, stepping closer. You're going to throw away a whole marriage for that. One mistake. I pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app. Let's go through the list. Spying, stealing, cheating, lying, mocking me to my face, dragging me through emotional hell, and doing it all while sleeping in my house. You stopped being my wife the moment you started being a parasite. Her mouth opened, then shut again. She tried to push the door, but the chain held. You don't get to play the victim, I said. Not here. She backed off, but not before throwing one final grenade. You'll miss me. No, I said quietly. I'll miss who I thought you were. And I closed the door. I stood there for a minute, listening to the sound of her heels on the concrete as she stormed off. No part of me wanted to chase her. That version of me, the man who made excuses for her, who apologized for asking questions, who swallowed his pride to keep her happy, he was gone. The weeks that followed were quiet, but that kind of quiet that feels earned. I started working out again, something I hadn't done in over a year. I cleaned out every inch of the house, repainted the walls, reclaimed my space. I even changed the bedroom, moved the bed to the other side, new mattress, new furniture. No trace of her left. But healing doesn't move in a straight line. One night, I found myself scrolling through old pictures. Us at the lake. Her birthday in Chicago. The honeymoon. And for a second, just a second, I wondered if any of it was real. Did she ever love me? Or was it always just strategy? I'll never know. And maybe that's the part that stings the most. Not knowing which parts of my life were genuine and which were theater. She was good at the act. Damn good. But there's a kind of power in surviving a betrayal like that. In knowing you walked through fire and didn't burn. You just shed the skin that held you back. I wasn't perfect. I made mistakes too. Maybe I worked too much. Maybe I got too comfortable. But I never disrespected her. Never violated her trust. And that's the line she crossed that I couldn't come back from. I saw Tyler once more, driving past in the Challenger, alone this time. No Ashley. No smug look. Just a quick glance and a blur of taillights. I wondered if she screwed him over too. Would have been poetic. But I didn't dwell. Because I was building something new now. Not just a home. Not just a routine. A life. One without secrets. Without lies. Without sleeping beside someone who smiled while carving me open. And for the first time in a long time, I could breathe. 2 months passed. I marked the time not with dates, but with small victories. The first time I woke up without thinking about her. The first night I came home and didn't feel the weight of silence. The first laugh that didn't carry guilt. And then came the court date. She arrived 10 minutes late, sunglasses on, holding some overpriced designer bag like it was a shield. Tyler wasn't with her. Neither was her lawyer. He had quit a week earlier, apparently after discovering she'd lied about nearly everything. Her new one was young, barely out of law school, with a file thin enough to be embarrassing. I sat across the room in a navy suit and calm shoulders. Ashley looked at me once. Just once. And I saw something different in her eyes. Not rage, not smugness. Just realization. That the man sitting in front of her wasn't the same fool she'd once controlled with a smile and a tight dress. Court was short. The judge didn't buy her story about the shared account. He asked for transaction logs, which I had ready. He asked for proof of spyware, which I provided. Her lawyer tried to pivot, bringing up emotional neglect, but the judge cut it off with a sentence I'll never forget. Financial fraud, unauthorized access to private accounts, and deliberate manipulation are not excuses for infidelity. They're crimes. Case closed. She lost everything. What little she could have claimed from our prenup was void due to the fraud. No alimony. No rights to the house. Not even the car, which was in my name. She left that courthouse in silence. I didn't watch her walk away, because she didn't deserve a goodbye. That night, I went home, poured myself a drink, and turned on music, something old, something slow. I let it play while I sat outside on the patio, letting the chill bite my skin just enough to feel alive. The stars were out. Quiet. Unbothered. I thought about who I was before Ashley, and who I could be now that she was gone. She didn't destroy me. She exposed me. She peeled back layers I didn't know I had. Anger, patience, resilience. I'd always thought I was a man who avoided conflict. Turns out, I'm a man who endures it, and walks out stronger. Friends started coming back around. I let them in, told them the truth. We drank, we laughed. Some were shocked. Most just said, we never liked her anyway. One night, I saw her name flash across my screen. Unknown number, but I knew. You don't forget the rhythm of a name that once mattered. I didn't answer. She called again the next day. Left a voicemail. Liam, I don't know what to say. I guess you got what you wanted. I don't even know who I am anymore. I'm sorry. I deleted it without listening to the end. Because sorry doesn't mean anything when it's hollow. Sorry doesn't glue broken trust back together. Sorry doesn't bring back the years I spent believing in a lie. And now? Now I live in truth. My mornings are quiet. My nights are peaceful. I started going on walks again, even joined a hiking group. There's a woman named Claire. She laughs easily, listens closely, and never makes me feel like I have to earn basic respect. We're not dating. Not yet. But for once, I'm not rushing. Not searching. Not fixing. Just living. And if I could tell anyone who's been where I've been one thing, it's this. Don't chase what broke you. Don't beg for clarity from chaos. Don't wait for apologies that will never come. Heal in silence. Build without them. And when they knock again, let the door stay closed. Because your peace? That's the real revenge. About 6 months out, I found myself laughing again. Real laughter, the kind that sneaks up on you when you're not thinking about the past. It happened while watching a bad movie with friends, the kind we used to tear apart for fun. I don't remember the movie. I remember the feeling. Like someone had taken a weight off my chest I didn't even know was still there. That's when I realized, healing isn't one big moment. It's thousands of little ones that show up unannounced. Like the first time I passed by the restaurant Ashley and I used to go to every Friday night, and didn't feel a damn thing. Or when I got rid of the couch she insisted on buying, the The one she claimed was aesthetic, but felt like sitting on concrete. Replaced it with something mine. Something comfortable. My world, once filled with her voice, her clothes, her perfume, her chaos, was finally quiet. But not empty. I started volunteering twice a week at a local community center. Nothing major, just helping kids with homework, running some fitness workshops. It felt good. Clean. Like I was rebuilding something real, not for anyone else's benefit. Just mine. One afternoon, I caught my reflection in the mirror, sweaty from a workout, hair a mess, a small cut on my knuckle from messing with gym equipment. And I smiled. Not because I looked good, but because I looked like me. Not the polished, controlled version Ashley liked to parade around. The real one. Unfiltered. Flawed. Free. Then came the message. A DM on Instagram, from a fake account with no profile picture. Just one line. You look happy. I missed that smile. I didn't need to ask who it was. I didn't reply. Instead, I archived it, turned off my phone, and went for a drive. Windows down, wind in my face, no destination. Just movement. Freedom. I ended up at a lookout point on the edge of the city, where the skyline shimmered under the setting sun like something from a movie. And that's when it hit me again. She didn't break me. She woke me up. Ashley forced me to rebuild, but in doing so, she gave me something I never would have taken on my own. Permission to let go. Let go of the version of love I thought I deserved. Let go of needing answers from someone who never had them. Let go of the fear that being alone meant being unworthy. I don't check her socials anymore. I don't ask friends if they've seen her. If she's happy, good. If she's still lying her way through life, that's not my burden to carry. What matters is this. I sleep soundly. I eat without knots in my stomach. I smile for no reason. And for the first time in years, I'm not waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because when you've already walked through hell, everything else is just noise. I've got a passport sitting on my desk now. Somewhere tropical, maybe. Or maybe just quiet. I haven't decided. All I know is, I'm going. Not to escape. Not to forget. But to celebrate. Because I made it. The end. It didn't come with fireworks. It didn't come with some final face-off or last call or desperate knock at my door. It came one morning, standing barefoot in my kitchen, sipping black coffee, listening to the hum of the world outside. No drama. No noise. Just me. Present. Whole. Undamaged. That was the real ending. Not when Ashley walked out. Not when the court made it official. Not even when her last message faded into the void. It ended the day I stopped needing revenge. The day I stopped looking backward. The day I realized I didn't survive her. I outgrew her. So if you're reading this, stuck in that in-between space, betrayed, confused, trying to make sense of something that makes no sense at all, let me leave you with this. You are not broken. You are being rebuilt. Piece by piece. Day by day. And one morning, maybe sooner than you think, you'll wake up, take a deep breath, and realize it's over. And you won. After our wedding, my wife's parents demanded a spare key, saying, we need to check in whenever we want. My wife, Jessica, handed it over without hesitation. I simply smiled and waited. A week later, they let themselves in only to find themselves locked inside with someone they never expected. Let me back up a bit and explain how everything spiraled into chaos, because believe me, it wasn't supposed to turn out like this. We had a beautiful wedding. Jessica was radiant. She always was, a fiery beauty with a smile so magnetic she could convince anyone she was an angel. Her parents, Robert and Linda, were another story entirely. Overbearing, judgmental, constantly prying. Jessica always said they had good intentions, but I knew better. Their good intentions were the last thing our marriage needed. When they asked for the spare key, alarm bells went off in my head. Jessica and I had discussed boundaries before marriage, and privacy was a significant point. Giving them open access was a violation of our agreement. Jess, I confronted her gently after her parents left. We talked about this. Why'd you give them the key? She rolled her eyes dramatically, sighing as if I had asked something absurd. Kevin, come on. They're my parents. What's the big deal? It's not like we have anything to hide. She dismissed my concerns as petty paranoia, making me feel ridiculous for even bringing it up. So, I decided to let it go for now. But something felt off. It was a small crack, barely noticeable, yet enough to weaken the whole foundation. The days that followed showed subtle shifts in Jessica's behavior. Small things, a sudden interest in going out with friends without inviting me, more frequent glances at her phone with mysterious smiles, becoming defensive whenever I asked innocuous questions about her day. The woman who was so eager to share every minor detail now acted like I was prying into state secrets. One evening, after she'd gone out again, her phone buzzed incessantly on the coffee table. Usually, I'd never even glance at it, but something inside me, an instinct I didn't know I had, forced me to look. The screen flashed with a notification. Can't wait to see you tonight. Same place, same room. Winking face. My blood ran cold. I stared at the message, heart pounding furiously. I knew immediately it wasn't a harmless text from a girlfriend. Who was it from? The contact name read simply, M. I tried to rationalize, but deep down, I already knew. Denial came swiftly, followed by waves of disbelief and anger. My mind raced, replaying recent events, every moment she dismissed me or acted strangely now making painful sense. I decided not to confront Jessica immediately. I needed evidence, something concrete. If I rushed in emotionally, she'd turn it around, make me out to be the irrational husband she always implied I was becoming. So, I began observing, keeping quiet, and gathering clues. It felt pathetic, honestly, having to spy on the woman I'd sworn my life to. But love, or whatever fragile illusion remained, drove me forward. The weekend came, and Jessica announced she was going shopping with her mother. Another lie, I could see it clearly in her eyes. She barely even made an effort to sound convincing anymore. Once she left, I drove straight to the same place, same room, I'd traced from her recent credit card charges, a fancy hotel downtown. My heart thundered violently in my chest as I pulled into the parking lot, feeling foolish yet driven by a stubborn need for the truth. I waited patiently, hidden behind tinted windows. Then, I saw her, Jessica, stepping from a car I didn't recognize, laughing flirtatiously as a man put his hand gently on her lower back, guiding her inside. He was tall, dark-haired, and undeniably handsome, exactly her type, except that man wasn't me. Sickness gripped my stomach. The image shattered any illusion I'd been desperately clinging to. My wife, the woman I'd adored, trusted, defended, was stepping into a hotel with another man. I clenched my fists, anger and humiliation raging within me. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a declaration of war against everything we'd built together. That evening, I pretended ignorance, forcing myself to smile as she casually lied about her exhausting day shopping. Inside, I burned, already planning what I'd do next. Jessica had always underestimated me, believing I'd accept any lie she fed me. But I wasn't going down quietly. She chose this battle, now she'd face consequences. That brings us back to her parents and the key. A week after Jessica's lies unraveled, her parents used their spare key to check in again. Except, this time, the lock was changed from the outside. Trapped inside was someone neither they nor Jessica anticipated. My best friend, Michael. You see, Michael was more than just my best man at the wedding. He'd been my ally since childhood, a person Jessica despised for no clear reason. She'd spent months planting seeds of doubt, trying to drive a wedge between us. But now, trapped face to face with Jessica's overbearing parents, Michael had a story of his own to tell, a story about betrayal, deception, and a woman named Jessica who'd woven a dangerous web. And the best part? Jessica had no idea how much Michael truly knew. As I stood outside the door, calmly listening to the chaos erupting inside, a twisted satisfaction filled my heart. Jessica wanted war. Well, she'd got it. As I stood silently outside, listening to the muffled shouts and confusion through the door, I felt oddly detached. Jessica had always accused me of being too passive, too forgiving, weak, even. Now, standing on the threshold of my collapsing marriage, that passivity had given way to an eerie calm, sharpened by the cold edge of betrayal. Inside, Michael was calmly, methodically laying out truths Jessica never expected anyone else to know. I couldn't hear everything clearly, but snippets slipped through, enough to piece together the scene inside. Robert and Linda, my intrusive in-laws, were shouting something about calling the police. Michael's voice cut through their hysteria, steady and unbothered. You really want the police involved? I'm happy to share Jessica's messages with the officers, Michael announced boldly. Or would you rather hear them yourselves? I imagined their faces, pale with disbelief, as he read aloud the explicit messages between Jessica and the mysterious M. It wasn't Michael, as I briefly suspected. He'd never betray me like that. Instead, he'd discovered Jessica's secret affair weeks before I had. Michael had his suspicions when Jessica started acting overly sweet toward him, trying to charm her way closer, manipulating conversations to gauge if he suspected anything. But Michael knew her game. He'd played along just long enough to unravel her deceit, collecting evidence, screenshots, hotel receipts, all quietly amassed for this exact moment. Jessica's parents now faced a bitter reality. Their perfect daughter was a fraud, her innocence a carefully constructed illusion. Their control over our lives, symbolized by that spare key, had finally backfired spectacularly. Suddenly, footsteps thundered toward the door, fist pounding desperately on the other side. Kevin! Kevin! Open the door now! Linda shrieked, voice shaking with panic. This isn't funny. Let us out. I stayed perfectly still, savoring the moment. Let them feel trapped, just as I'd felt every time they invaded our home, our marriage. Moments later, Jessica arrived home, pulling her car into the driveway. I watched silently as she stepped out, confusion etched across her beautiful face. What's going on here? She demanded sharply, noticing the locked door and her parents' frantic shouting inside. Her eyes narrowed when she saw me standing calmly, arms crossed, leaning casually against the porch railing. Oh, hi, Jess, I said dryly, enjoying the shock flickering in her eyes. Small issue with your parents in that key you so generously handed out. Seems they've gotten themselves trapped. Jessica stormed toward me, her facade cracking just enough to reveal a simmering rage beneath her polished appearance. She'd perfected looking composed, always in control, but tonight that mask was slipping rapidly. Kevin, open the door right now, she hissed through clenched teeth. What the hell are you doing? Me. I raised an eyebrow innocently. Absolutely nothing. They're the ones who let themselves in. Maybe next time, don't hand out keys without consulting your husband. She stepped closer, dangerously close, her voice a venomous whisper. You think you're so clever, don't you? I told you, they're my parents. They can come and go whenever they want. And apparently, I said coldly, staring directly into her deceitful eyes, so can your boyfriend. She recoiled visibly, startled for only a second before recovering with that infuriating arrogance I'd grown to despise. Oh, Kevin, Jessica laughed mockingly, tilting her head as if pitying a child. You always did love your little conspiracy theories. Is that why Michael's in there, filling their heads with nonsense? I shook my head slowly, my anger intensifying. She knew exactly what she'd done, yet her first instinct was still to lie, to twist reality until it matched her delusions. Jessica, spare me the performance. I saw you. The hotel downtown. The man you've been sneaking around with, sending texts you thought I'd never read. My voice trembled with controlled fury, and she sensed it. Her smile faltered slightly. She hesitated, then doubled down defiantly. You're seeing things, Kevin. Or maybe you're just bored and trying to create drama because your life is pathetic. It stung, and she knew it. Jessica had always known exactly how to wound me. But this time, the blade didn't cut nearly as deeply as she'd hoped. Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed from inside the house. Jessica whirled around, panic finally breaking through her polished exterior. Mom, Dad, what's happening? Another voice, Michael's, shouted clearly from behind the locked door. Oh, don't worry, Jessica. I just accidentally broke the vase, the same one Kevin bought you on your first anniversary. Shame it was fake, just like your marriage. Jessica lunged forward, pounding on the door, screaming obscenities. For the first time, her composure shattered completely. I watched with quiet satisfaction as she unraveled before my eyes, no longer the confident manipulator who controlled everything. Minutes later, flashing blue and red lights illuminated our driveway. Jessica turned to me, eyes wide, suddenly terrified. You called the police? Kevin, are you insane? I shrugged calmly, pulling out my phone, displaying the number I'd dialed earlier. Actually, your parents called. Remember? The officers quickly unlocked the door. Michael emerged first, calm as ever, handing them a small folder filled with the evidence he'd gathered. Jessica's parents stumbled out next, humiliated and speechless, their pride shattered as thoroughly as their daughter's lies. An officer turned to me, his eyes questioning. Sir, what's going on here? Jessica jumped in quickly, desperation driving her words. Officer, please, my husband's making up stories. This is all a misunderstanding. I stared her down coldly, speaking clearly to the policeman. My wife's been having an affair. Her parents trespassed tonight, trying to control our marriage, unaware of the truth they were walking into. Michael here is all the proof you need. Jessica's face drained of color, realizing the game was finally over. This wasn't how I imagined my marriage ending. Police cars in the driveway, accusations flying, trust obliterated beyond repair. But Jessica had made her choices clear. Now, so had I. Standing amidst the flashing police lights, neighbors peering curiously from behind drawn curtains, reality crashed over me hard. My marriage was a lie. Jessica, the woman who once promised me forever, now glared at me like I was the villain in her twisted story. Kevin, please, she whispered desperately, suddenly switching her tone from defiance to pleading innocence, eyes glistening convincingly. You can't do this. You can't humiliate me like this. Humiliate you? I laughed bitterly, feeling my own patience fracture into sharp shards. Jessica, you spent months humiliating me behind closed doors, lying to my face, sneaking around like I'm an idiot. Now you care about humiliation? The officers exchanged uncomfortable glances. One approached cautiously, his voice measured. Maybe we should all step inside and talk calmly? Inside, I stared at the broken vase Michael had shattered intentionally, symbolic now of our shattered marriage. Jessica's parents stood stiffly in the corner, their usual confidence now reduced to embarrassment and disbelief. Michael stood silently beside me, unwavering, supportive in ways I'd never fully appreciated until tonight. Jessica paced nervously, aware she was losing control. Finally, cornered and desperate, she lashed out viciously, hoping to wound me into silence. You think this is all my fault? You never gave me what I wanted, Kevin. You were so passive, always content to be average. I was bored. Maybe if you'd been a real husband, I wouldn't have had to. Had to what? I cut her off sharply, my voice trembling. Had to cheat on me? Had to lie about every damn thing in our lives? She glared at me defiantly, not bothering to hide the venom dripping from every word. Yes, exactly. You think marriage is easy, Kevin? I deserve better. Mark treats me the way you never could. So there it was, finally a name. Mark. Her mysterious lover, the source of her whispered secrets, the man who'd torn apart our marriage from the shadows. I swallowed hard, my fist clenched so tightly my knuckles turned white. Then go to him. Go and see how long it lasts when you're not sneaking around behind someone's back. Jessica hesitated, thrown off balance by my sudden willingness to let her go. Her pride flared angrily again, unwilling to let me have the last word. Fine. Maybe I will. Mark's worth 10 of you anyway. At least he makes me feel alive. I nodded slowly, absorbing the blow. Hurt surged through me, raw and searing. Yet somehow, beneath it, was relief, a strange clarity that came only after devastation. Our marriage was dead, and Jessica herself had killed it. Michael placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder, silently signaling he was there for me. I turned back to the officers, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. I want them out. All of them. This is still my home. Jessica stared, stunned. Kevin, you can't be serious. Oh, I'm deadly serious. You've done enough damage. Go find Mark or whoever the hell else makes you feel alive. I'm done. Her parents looked horrified, mouths agape at the sudden shift of power, realizing too late they'd lost control. Jessica spun around, furious, grabbing her purse and keys from the countertop. Without another word, she stormed past me, deliberately knocking my shoulder as she left. Her parents followed silently, defeated, eyes cast down to avoid mine. When the front door slammed shut, silence fell heavily around me. The police, satisfied there was no further threat, quickly excused themselves. The house was quiet, uncomfortably quiet. Michael watched me cautiously, waiting for the collapse he assumed would follow. Instead, I took a deep breath, walked into the kitchen, and poured myself a drink. Want one? I asked, raising the bottle toward Michael. He chuckled softly, relieved to see I wasn't completely broken. Kevin, he began carefully, accepting the drink. I'm sorry you had to find out like this. I shrugged numbly. Better now than years later, right? We sat quietly, the only sound the occasional clink of ice cubes in our glasses. Thoughts raced chaotically through my mind. Sadness, anger, betrayal, all were present. But above them, strangely, was clarity. Jessica's betrayal was painful, but facing the truth was empowering. She no longer controlled me, no longer twisted my love into weakness. As the night wore on, Michael finally broke the silence again. So, what's next? Divorce. I nodded thoughtfully, acknowledging the reality. Definitely divorce. She doesn't deserve another chance. Michael leaned forward, elbows on the table, speaking quietly but sincerely. Kevin, I've seen you bend over backward to make Jessica happy. It was never enough, and it never would have been. You deserve better. His words resonated deeply, stirring emotions I'd suppressed for too long. Jessica had turned love into something cruel, using my vulnerability as a weapon. No more. Eventually, Michael stood to leave, promising he'd return first thing tomorrow to help sort through the chaos. Alone again, I moved through the darkened house, once filled with love and laughter, now hollow and silent. In our bedroom, I noticed something glittering on the dresser, Jessica's wedding ring, carelessly discarded as she'd stormed out. Picking it up, I turned it over thoughtfully. It symbolized promises shattered, trust broken beyond repair. And yet, strangely, I felt free, finally liberated from a woman who'd never truly valued me. Jessica had played her cruel game masterfully, but tonight she'd lost more than she bargained for. Tomorrow, I'd confront the reality of lawyers, paperwork, and painful goodbyes. But tonight, for the first time in ages, I could finally breathe again. Jessica had stolen so much from me, but she'd never take my dignity, my self-respect, or my future. I placed the ring carefully on the dresser, turned away, and closed the bedroom door behind me. Jessica's reign was over. My life, however uncertain, was finally mine again. Sleep eluded me that night, leaving me pacing the house until dawn cracked open the sky. Every corner echoed memories I'd built with Jessica, some genuine, some painfully deceptive. As sunlight filtered through the curtains, it illuminated the truth. I had to reclaim my life, piece by shattered piece. By noon, Michael returned, bringing coffee and a determined look. We barely exchanged words. Our friendship had reached a depth where silence could speak louder than conversation. Together, we sifted through the debris Jessica left behind. Forgotten clothing, pictures capturing false smiles, gifts once meaningful, now meaningless. While sorting through her belongings, Michael suddenly froze, his eyes fixated on something he'd found hidden in Jessica's jewelry box. "What's that?" I asked cautiously, noticing his unusually tense posture. "Looks like letters. Love letters." Michael slowly unfolded the carefully concealed envelopes, glancing at me with genuine concern. "You sure you want to read these?" My jaw tightened, and I nodded sharply. "I have to know everything. No more lies." We sat together, reading silently. Jessica's handwriting was unmistakable, feminine, and delicate, a stark contrast to the venom behind her words. Each letter painted vivid pictures of her affair, emotions raw, unabashed, and shockingly cruel toward me. She described Mark in painful detail, praising his strength, his ambition, everything she claimed I lacked. Each sentence dripped disdain toward our marriage, toward the life we built. Yet, the most painful revelation lay in her final letter. "Mark, I've done everything I can to make Kevin leave me. I've humiliated him, degraded him, even handed my parents the keys to our house just to push him away. But the fool keeps clinging on. I want you. I need you. I'm done playing house. Let's end this. He won't fight back." The words burned into my brain, searing through my heart. Michael watched me warily, ready to offer comfort, but I wasn't broken. I was furious. Jessica had orchestrated this entire situation, assuming I'd quietly crumble under her betrayal. She'd underestimated my strength, my pride, and my ability to fight back. My phone buzzed suddenly, jolting me from my rage-filled thoughts. The screen flashed with Jessica's name. Without hesitation, I answered sharply. "What do you want?" "Kevin, we need to talk." Her voice trembled slightly, the confident arrogance notably diminished. "There's nothing left to say," I responded coldly, clenching the letters tightly in my hand. "You've made your choices abundantly clear. Please, just give me 5 minutes," she insisted desperately. "Meet me at the cafe. For closure, if nothing else." I glanced at Michael, who shook his head sternly. But curiosity, or perhaps the need to face her one last time, got the better of me. "Fine, but this better be the last time I ever see your face." The cafe felt unbearably familiar, the same place we'd first met, where I'd fallen in love with her laughter and bright eyes. Now, those memories felt tainted, poisoned by Jessica's betrayal. She was already seated, nervously twisting her napkin when I arrived. Her eyes were tired, makeup barely concealing the aftermath of a sleepless night. I sat across from her silently, waiting. "Kevin," she started softly, trying to regain composure, "I didn't mean for things to get this messy." I scoffed bitterly, barely suppressing my anger. "Messy? Jessica, you destroyed our marriage intentionally. Stop pretending you're innocent." She flinched slightly, then shifted tactics. "Fine, maybe I made some mistakes. But you need to understand, you pushed me into this." "Unbelievable," I laughed harshly, amazed by her audacity. "You betray me, humiliate me, and now somehow it's my fault?" "Yes." Her voice rose sharply, causing nearby patrons to glance our way. "You were passive, weak, always so complacent. I wanted excitement, adventure. You couldn't give me that." I leaned forward, my voice dangerously quiet. "Then you should have left. Instead, you chose betrayal. You don't get to justify your choices by blaming me." Jessica leaned back, eyes narrowing sharply. "Mark's proposing. We're moving in together. I wanted you to hear it from me first. Her words cut deep, exactly as she'd intended, yet I refused to flinch. Instead, I smirked defiantly. Good luck, Jess. He'll soon find out exactly who he's getting involved with. She hesitated, clearly rattled by my unexpected composure. Her hand shook slightly as she took a deep breath, attempting another jab. You think you're better off alone? You'll never find anyone else who wants to deal with your pathetic insecurities. I smiled, genuinely amused this time. I'd rather be alone than live another second with a woman like you. Jessica recoiled, momentarily speechless. She'd expected a different reaction, hurt, begging, pleading, yet found herself faced with a man she no longer controlled. As I stood, ready to leave forever, her hand suddenly reached out, gripping my arm tightly. Her eyes flashed desperation, vulnerability briefly replacing arrogance. Kevin, wait. What if I made a mistake? I pulled away sharply, my voice filled with quiet resolve. You've made nothing but mistakes, Jessica. Unfortunately for you, there's no undo button. Outside, the cool air cleansed my lungs, washing away her toxic presence. Michael waited nearby, anxiety clear in his eyes. He relaxed visibly as he saw me approach, noting my calm determination. You all right? He asked cautiously. I'm fine, I replied confidently, surprising even myself. Jessica just made one final attempt to twist the knife. She failed. Michael smiled approvingly, patting my shoulder. Good. Now it's time to put all this behind you. I nodded silently, my mind already set on the future. Jessica had tried to break me, crush my confidence, destroy the man I was. Instead, she'd awakened something powerful, self-respect, resilience, strength I'd forgotten existed within me. That evening, alone at home, I tossed her letters into the fireplace, watching them ignite brightly, flames erasing every cruel word she'd ever spoken. Jessica had demanded adventure and excitement, yet I was finally the one who felt truly alive, unburdened by deception, ready to reclaim myself. Tomorrow would begin the formal end, divorce lawyers, paperwork, and division of assets, but tonight marked my rebirth. Jessica's betrayal had wounded me deeply, but it also reshaped me into someone stronger, wiser, and infinitely more self-assured. I had nothing left to lose, and everything left to gain. The divorce unfolded swiftly, almost mechanically, like dismantling a broken machine piece by piece. Jessica fought bitterly, trying to grasp at anything she could: our house, my savings, even our dog. But for once, the system sided with fairness. Her attempts to portray me as inadequate fell flat against the evidence Michael had carefully gathered. Jessica's arrogance evaporated quickly when Mark mysteriously backed out of their arrangement, abandoning her abruptly. Suddenly alone, stripped of her backup plan, Jessica's desperation turned vicious. Late one night, my phone buzzed violently, jarring me awake. Groggily, I glanced at the screen, seeing Jessica's name again. Annoyed, I answered harshly, "What now, Jess?" She was crying, her words slurred with alcohol and despair. "Kevin, please. I made a terrible mistake. Mark left me. Everything is ruined. I'm so sorry. I miss you." I felt a strange emptiness as I listened. Part of me wanted to laugh bitterly at her newfound remorse. Another wanted to shout at her for daring to contact me again. "You don't miss me," I responded quietly, my tone colder than I'd ever thought myself capable of. "You miss having someone to manipulate." "No, it's not like that," she sobbed desperately, her voice trembling. "I was wrong, Kevin. I see that now. I never loved him. It was all a huge mistake. I want us back." The audacity was astonishing, even for her. Months of lies, manipulation, emotional cruelty, now she begged forgiveness only because her selfish plans had failed. "Jessica," I spoke softly, feeling a strange mix of pity and disgust. "You destroyed everything we had for a fantasy. You chose him over us repeatedly. There's no us anymore. Don't call me again." Ending the call, I sat silently, heart heavy but resolved. Jessica's manipulation no longer held power over me. My life was finally mine again. Weeks passed, blending into months. Jessica faded from my daily thoughts, replaced by renewed ambitions, new routines, and genuine friendships strengthened through adversity. Michael remained a constant support, reminding me daily that life was bigger than one woman's betrayal. Just as peace seemed restored, Jessica resurfaced one evening, appearing uninvited at a mutual friend's party. When our eyes met, she immediately approached, determined but visibly shaken. "Kevin," she began quietly, eyes pleading, "can we talk privately?" I hesitated, feeling wary. Yet curiosity got the better of me again, and I reluctantly agreed, stepping onto the quiet balcony, overlooking the city lights. Jessica took a deep breath, forcing her voice steady. I know I ruined everything, but there's something you need to know, something I hid from you. I frowned, irritation building quickly. Jessica, enough games. She shook her head desperately. It's not a game. It's about Mark. He threatened me when he left. He knows things. Illegal things. I might be in danger. Her fear appeared genuine, eyes wide with panic. Yet, after all her deception, trusting her felt impossible. What do you expect from me? I asked coldly. You chose that life. You chose him. Her eyes filled with tears, voice trembling. I just wanted you to be careful. Mark blamed you when our relationship fell apart. He said you'd pay. My anger ignited instantly, fist clenched. So now your choices endanger me too? Thanks, Jessica. She grabbed my wrist urgently. I'm sorry. Please, be careful. Shaking her off, I stepped away, disgusted yet unsettled. Jessica had lied effortlessly before, but the raw terror in her eyes was difficult to dismiss. Days later, her warning proved prophetic. Arriving home after a late meeting, my front door stood ajar, splinters of wood scattered across the porch. Heart racing, I cautiously entered. Inside, furniture lay overturned, drawers emptied chaotically. It wasn't random vandalism, it was intentional intimidation. Then I noticed a small note, hastily scrawled and pinned to the kitchen table with a knife. She betrayed us both. You'll pay the price. Cold dread flooded my veins. Mark had indeed come for revenge, punishing me for Jessica's betrayal. Without hesitation, I called Michael, who urged me to report immediately to the police. Officers responded quickly, taking statements, photographs, promising investigations, but dread lingered. Days turned into restless nights. Every sound startled me awake, paranoia infecting my thoughts. Jessica's betrayal had now spiraled into tangible danger, her choices haunting my existence long after her departure. Finally, unable to endure uncertainty any longer, I sought Jessica out at her new apartment, confronting her angrily at the door. Who exactly is Mark? What was he involved in? She hesitated, eyes darting nervously. I didn't know at first. But later, I discovered he was mixed up with dangerous people. Money laundering, violence, things I didn't understand. I glared furiously, voice low and controlled. And you invited this danger into our lives willingly? She sobbed again, remorse genuine but useless. I thought I could control it. I'm so sorry, Kevin. Shaking my head, disgusted, I turned away, leaving Jessica crying helplessly behind her closed door. I'd given her everything, trusted her blindly, only to have her selfish decisions now threaten my safety. Returning home, fury ignited within me, a determination stronger than fear. I refused to be a victim any longer, to allow Jessica or Mark or anyone else to control my future. That night, securing the damaged front door, I resolved to reclaim control. Mark intended to intimidate, punish, and destroy, but I wouldn't cower. I'd fight back, protect myself, my dignity, my life from Jessica's endless wave of selfishness. In a strange way, Jessica's betrayal had empowered me, forcing strength I'd never known existed. Mark expected passive weakness, Jessica's image of me, but he'd soon discover the truth. I was far stronger than they'd both believed. Jessica had ignited this chaos, choosing deceit and danger over stability and love. Now, consequences loomed over us both, inescapable and dangerous. But I was ready. Jessica's betrayal had broken me, but now, I'd rebuild myself stronger, smarter, ready to face whatever came next. Days dragged into weeks, but Mark's threat remained eerily quiet, like the calm before a storm. I lived in constant vigilance, every shadow at night carrying hidden dangers. Michael insisted I stay at his place for safety, but pride and stubbornness kept me rooted in my own home. Jessica's betrayal had driven me out emotionally. I refused to let Mark do the same physically. One rainy evening, I was startled awake by frantic pounding at my front door. My heart thundered painfully, adrenaline surging. Grabbing a baseball bat, I cautiously approached, expecting danger. Instead, through the peephole, I saw Jessica soaked by rain, visibly terrified, makeup streaking her pale face. Opening the door slightly, I growled, "What do you want, Jessica?" She pushed inside quickly, trembling uncontrollably. Mark was at my apartment. He's completely lost it. He said he's coming here tonight. My irritation flared instantly. You let him here? Jessica, how selfish can you be? No, Kevin, she begged desperately, shaking her head. I came to warn you. I couldn't let him hurt you. I glared at her bitterly. You've done plenty already. Her eyes filled again with genuine fear. I'm not lying. He's dangerous. He thinks destroying you will somehow punish me for leaving him. I swear, this isn't another lie. I paused, torn between suspicion and the sincerity in her terrified eyes. Before I could respond, headlights flashed through the window, tires screeching loudly outside. Jessica's eyes widened in horror. "It's him," she whispered. Seconds later, pounding shook the door violently, rattling hinges. Mark's voice boomed aggressively from the porch. "Jessica, I know you're in there. You think you can betray me too?" Heart racing, anger surged. This chaos was Jessica's doing, yet now she looked to me for protection. I shouted firmly through the door, "Leave now, Mark, or I'm calling the police." Laughter echoed chillingly from the porch, taunting me. "Go ahead. Call them. By the time they arrive, I'll be gone, and you'll both be sorry." Without warning, the door splintered inward, Mark kicking violently, his eyes wild and enraged. Jessica screamed, backing against the wall, eyes filled with terror. My instincts took over, propelling me forward to block his path. Mark sneered, towering menacingly. "So, you're the pathetic husband Jessica humiliated for months. She's quite the actress, isn't she?" I refused to flinch, voice steady despite my pounding heart. "She betrayed us both, Mark. You think revenge solves anything?" He laughed bitterly, pointing aggressively at Jessica. "She destroyed everything for me, my connections, my money. She thought playing me would be easy. Now you'll both pay." He lunged suddenly, grabbing Jessica roughly by the arm. Rage erupted within me, unexpected, fierce, protective despite everything she'd done. I swung the baseball bat sharply, striking Mark's arm hard, forcing him backward. He cursed violently, eyes blazing with hatred. "You're dead," he growled, pulling out a knife from his jacket, glinting menacingly. Jessica screamed again, frozen in panic. My heart raced dangerously, survival instinct screaming warnings. Without hesitation, I swung again, connecting solidly with Mark's shoulder. He stumbled, dropping the knife briefly. Jessica scrambled to grab it, throwing it across the room, out of his reach. Outside, police sirens wailed, approaching rapidly, likely alerted by neighbors. Mark hesitated briefly, realizing his situation had spiraled beyond control. His eyes met mine again, cold fury blazing. "This isn't over," he warned darkly, before fleeing swiftly out the broken door. Jessica collapsed onto the floor, shaking uncontrollably. My anger surged, adrenaline fading into deep exhaustion. Kneeling beside her, despite everything, I placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, sobbing uncontrollably. "Kevin, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this to happen." Police arrived moments later, quickly assessing damage, taking statements, promising they'd locate Mark swiftly. Michael showed up soon after, worry etched deeply on his face. Pulling me aside, he spoke quietly, anger evident. "This ends now, Kevin. Jessica's choices have nearly gotten you killed. She can't be in your life anymore." He was right, yet looking at Jessica broken, terrified, I hesitated. Despite everything, I struggled to abandon her completely, torn between residual care and cold reality. Michael persisted firmly, reading my conflicted thoughts. "Kevin, she's poison. She brought this chaos into your life. Let her face her consequences." I nodded silently, finally acknowledging harsh truth. Jessica's destructive presence was toxic, dangerous, manipulative. Her apologies and tears couldn't erase her selfishness, betrayal, or the deadly threats she'd brought into my world. Turning toward her one last time, my voice was gentle yet resolute. "Jessica, you need to go. You're not safe here, and neither am I while you're around. This has to end." Her eyes widened, shocked, hurt. "Kevin, please." "No," I interrupted firmly, finally reclaiming control over my life. "Your choices endangered us both. I can't protect you anymore. You have to face this alone." She stared silently, devastation clear yet strangely understanding. She'd finally grasped reality, the destruction she'd caused, lives she'd shattered. Slowly standing, she whispered quietly, "I never meant to hurt you this badly. Please, someday forgive me." I shook my head sadly, exhaustion finally setting in. "Maybe someday, but not now. Go." Watching Jessica leave that night felt bittersweet, a final release of lingering attachment and pain. Her betrayal had reshaped my life dramatically, forcing strength and courage I'd never known existed within me. As police officers offered reassurance, promising Mark would soon face justice, clarity settled over me. Jessica had wounded me deeply, nearly destroyed my trust, but she'd never taken my resilience, my dignity, or my newfound strength. Days later, news broke of Mark's arrest. Charges piled heavily against him, violent threats, assault, money laundering, justice finally arriving, overdue yet satisfying. Jessica eventually moved away, disappearing entirely from my life, leaving behind nothing but painful lessons and scars that slowly healed. Months passed into a year. Rebuilding my life was slow but empowering, strengthening friendships, rediscovering happiness, peace, trust. Jessica's betrayal taught painful yet invaluable lessons about boundaries, self-worth, strength. She tried to destroy me, but inadvertently, she'd rebuilt me stronger. Jessica's deception reshaped me profoundly, teaching resilience through pain, clarity through chaos. Finally free, stronger than ever, I stepped forward boldly, ready for whatever came next, forever changed, but infinitely wiser. I found someone else, and we're starting a family, she said, sipping her latte like she was commenting on the weather. Also, I need you out by Friday. He's moving in. That was it. No hesitation. No remorse. No damn shame. Just those words and the echo of betrayal clanging through my skull while I sat there like an idiot in my own house, the house I paid for, watching my wife, Natalie, toss our marriage out like a used napkin. She looked me dead in the eyes when she said it, like it was some sort of power move, like she expected me to break, to cry, maybe even beg. But I didn't. Not in front of her. I swallowed everything. Rage, shock, grief. All of it went down like broken glass. I just stood up, grabbed my keys off the kitchen island, and walked out. I left the house I built, the home I thought we were making for us, not knowing I'd just become the punchline of a joke only she was laughing at. Her new guy? Ethan. Some gym influencer wannabe clown with perfect teeth, a leased Benz, and a hollow skull. The kind of guy who posts shirtless selfies in the mirror with the caption, "Rise, grind, conquer." The only thing he conquered was my wife. And judging by the messages I'd later find on her old iPad she forgot to log out of, he conquered her often, loudly, and in our bed, while I was working nights to pay for her yoga retreats and vegan skincare. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back. 2 months before that latte scene, I noticed things started shifting. Natalie stopped kissing me goodbye. She'd turn away when I reached for her in bed. Her phone was suddenly more guarded than Fort Knox, and she started going to Pilates 4 times a week, even though the closest she'd ever gotten to working out was clicking add to cart on Lululemon. One night, around 1 a.m., I woke up and she wasn't in bed. I walked down the hall and found her in the guest room, whispering into her phone with the lights off. When she noticed me, she jumped like I caught her stealing something. "Work call," she said. "Work call? At 1 in the damn morning?" "Natalie, it's Saturday." She blinked, froze, then smiled. "Right. Sorry. Time zones. Time zones." She was a wedding planner in Seattle. Who the hell was she talking to in another time zone on a Saturday night? I didn't press it then. I wanted to believe I was just being paranoid. That work was stressing her out, and we'd come back around. But she wasn't, lying to my face every day while coming home with another man's fingerprints still on her skin. But the gut knows. A man's instinct doesn't lie. And I didn't know it yet, but the truth was about to hit me harder than anything I could have imagined. One rainy Thursday, I got home earlier than usual. I opened the front door and immediately felt it, that shift in the air. The scent of her perfume mixed with something else. Musk. Cheap cologne. And her laughter, echoing from upstairs. Light. Flirtatious. Not the way she laughed around me anymore. My chest tightened. I walked softly, each step down the hallway like a countdown. 10. 9. 8. I got to the foot of the stairs when I heard it. A moan. Then a voice, his voice, saying something I'll never forget. "You're so much better than your boring husband." 3. 2. 1. I turned and walked out. I couldn't storm in. I couldn't fight. Not then. Not yet. I needed to think. I needed to breathe. I needed to make sure she'd never see me broken. I drove to the waterfront, sat in my truck, and stared at the black water for hours. My knuckles were white on the wheel. My throat burned from holding back screams. But somewhere in that silence, something inside me flipped. I wasn't going to let her destroy me. I wasn't going to lose everything just because she decided I wasn't fun enough for her little fantasy life. No, this wasn't the end. This was the beginning of something else. And she had no idea who she was about to turn into an enemy. 2 days after I caught their voices upstairs, I sat in the living room, calm as ever, sipping black coffee like nothing had changed. While she floated around the house like a smug little storm cloud in leggings, humming pop songs and texting like her fingers were possessed. Natalie had no idea I knew. She thought I was still in the dark. She even kissed my cheek that morning. Kissed me. After letting that gym rat climb all over her the night before. I didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Just nodded and said, "Have a great day, babe." Her eyes narrowed for half a second. Maybe she sensed something. But she shrugged it off and left like she was on her way to a mani-pedi, not hiding a whole affair behind my back. And that's when fate tossed me a loaded weapon. I was cleaning the kitchen, more like angrily scrubbing countertops I bought, when I heard the soft chime of an iPad powering up. I turned toward the couch. Natalie's old iPad, the one she hadn't touched in months, was charging. I didn't even know it still worked. She must have plugged it in recently and forgotten about it. I walked over. No password. The moment I tapped the Messages app, the screen opened to a thread titled, "Red Heart, Ethan Red Heart." The first message was a photo. A shirtless mirror pic from him. Classic. The next? "Natalie, he doesn't suspect a thing. I faked a migraine last night to sneak out. He actually brought me tea before I left, LOL. My stomach twisted. The messages kept going. Details. Plans. Stuff they did. Stuff they wanted to do. All of it right there, in full display. There were even jokes about me. "Ethan, do you think he's figured it out yet?" "Natalie, he's too busy playing husband." So predictable. Predictable? I paid the bills. I built this life. And she thought I was predictable? That was the moment something inside me truly cracked. Not like a shatter. More like a cold, slow split, like ice breaking under weight. This wasn't just betrayal. This was mockery. She wasn't even ashamed. She was proud of it. I took screenshots. Hundreds of them. Every message. Every photo. Every filthy little secret. And then I waited. I played the doting husband for another week. I cooked dinner. I asked about her day. I even offered to take her to that overpriced sushi place she liked. She turned me down. Said she had a girls' night. I smiled and nodded. That night, she came home at 3:30 a.m. with her hair messy and her lipstick smudged. I watched from the living room as she tiptoed inside, heels in one hand, purse in the other. She froze when she saw me sitting there. "Hey," she said, blinking. "Why are you up?" "Couldn't sleep," I said. "How was the girls' night?" She blinked again, slower this time. "It was fine. We watched movies." "Oh yeah." I smiled. "Tell Jessica I said hi." Jessica had moved to Florida last month. Her face twitched. She knew I knew. But she didn't confess. She sat down beside me like nothing had happened. "I'm tired. Let's talk tomorrow." I nodded. "Sure." But the clock had started ticking. I wasn't planning to argue. I wasn't going to shout. That would have given her power. No, Natalie wasn't going to get a storm. She was going to get a hurricane. And she'd never see it coming. I had everything I needed. Photos. Screenshots. Dates. Times. Her lies laid out in cold, brutal clarity. But revenge needs patience. You don't strike when you're burning. You strike when you're ice. So I waited. Each morning I handed her coffee like a doting husband, while in the background, I was building the fire that would eventually burn down the illusion she thought she had control over. I made copies of our financial records, froze the joint accounts, rerouted my paychecks, removed her as a beneficiary from everything that had my name on it. She didn't even notice. Natalie was too busy playing the role of secret lover to her walking protein shake. One night, she came home drunk, tossed her keys on the floor, and flopped onto the couch like she owned the place. I sat in the armchair across from her, watching her mouth hang open as she scrolled through her phone, completely unaware I had already read everything. "Do you love him?" I asked suddenly. She blinked, glanced up, smirked. "Love who?" "Ethan." The name hung in the air like poison. She froze, but only for a second. Then came the shrug. "Why does it matter?" There it was. That tone. That rotten, smug tone that said she was in charge. I didn't flinch. "You're sleeping with him." She leaned back, kicked off her heels. And I'm your husband." That made her laugh. Not nervously. Not guiltily. She laughed. Like I just told her a knock-knock joke. "You're my placeholder," she said, brushing her hair behind her ear. "You think I married you for love? You were the safe bet. The boring one. The one who wouldn't cheat, wouldn't yell, wouldn't even notice." "I noticed," I said. "Oh, now you did," she grinned. "But you're too late. I'm done pretending." She stood, walked over, and sat on the edge of the table, right in front of me. Her eyes locked on mine like a dare. "You want to hear it all?" she whispered. "Fine. I met Ethan at the gym. He actually listens to me. He's exciting. He makes me feel things you never could. And yes, while you were working late, He was working me. On your couch. In your bed. Once in your office. You gonna cry now? I stayed silent. Because here's the thing. If a woman's willing to look you in the eye and spit in your soul like that, she's already gone. But she wasn't done. I found someone else, she said, rising from the table. And we're starting a family. I stared at her, every word sinking like lead in water. Also, she added, grabbing her bag, he's moving in. So you'll need to leave. And just like that, she kicked me out of the house I paid for. I didn't argue. I just walked upstairs, packed one bag, and left. But here's what she didn't know. I'd already transferred the house into a trust under my name. I'd already filed for divorce with infidelity evidence attached. And I had already set the meeting for the next morning with a lawyer who salivated at the word alimony. Natalie thought she'd won, that I'd vanish like some pathetic ex she could mock with her new life. But life has a twisted sense of humor. And 3 years later, it would all come full circle. In a fancy restaurant, dim lights and live jazz, she'd walk in holding hands with a man who no longer looked like Ethan. Older, thinner, weaker. And across the room, she'd see me, in a tailored suit, laughing with a woman who made her look like yesterday's dust. Her eyes would freeze. Her jaw would drop. Because I hadn't just survived. I had become everything she told herself I could never be. The night I left, the house was silent. Not peaceful, hollow. The kind of silence that wraps around your throat, reminding you this is no longer your home. Natalie was in the shower, probably washing off another man's touch while humming some trashy pop tune. I stood in the bedroom doorway, a duffel bag at my feet, scanning the room we used to call ours. Photos on the dresser. Us in Hawaii. Us at her sister's wedding. Her fake laugh plastered beside my hopeful smile. I grabbed one and stared at it for a long second. Then I dropped it into the trash on my way out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't leave a note. That would have given her drama to feed on. No. I vanished the way she deserved, without warning, without closure. I slept in my truck that night, parked outside a 24-hour diner. The engine off. The cold seeping in. The world suddenly felt a whole lot wider and darker. The pain didn't hit in one wave. It dripped in slow. Memory by memory. Lie by lie. I remembered how she used to light candles before I came home from work. How she once told me, I've never felt safer with anyone else. What AF *****ing joke. By sunrise, I'd made up my mind. No more trying to work it out. No more pretending. This wasn't a break. This was war. The next few days moved fast. I met with my lawyer, a brutal shark named Christina Voss. She barely glanced at the files I handed her, screenshots, timestamps, everything before nodding. She's screwed, she said. We'll hit her for infidelity, fraud, emotional cruelty, whatever you want. But just so you know, women like her? They don't break easy. They snap when the mask slips. Good. I hoped she snapped. I wanted her to feel what I felt every time I lay in bed and wondered where she was. While Natalie was playing house with Ethan, I was moving behind the scenes. Reclaiming bank accounts. Freezing joint credit cards. Pulling ownership records of the house. I even spoke to her landlord-to-be. Turns out the new place Ethan promised her fell through. She had no clue her new future was about to collapse like a house of cards. The first time she called, I ignored it. The second time, I answered. You left without saying anything, she said, her voice sharp. That's abandonment, by the way. I chuckled. No, Natalie. That's escape. You think you can just disappear and leave me to figure everything out? She snapped. You figured out Ethan just fine. I replied. Now figure out how to pay for the next mortgage bill, because it's still in my name. The line went quiet. Then came the venom. You're a bitter little man. No wonder I needed someone else. I didn't flinch. You wanted someone else. You needed me. You'll regret this, she hissed. When I'm married and pregnant and glowing, you'll be alone, with your pathetic pride and no one to love you. I smiled, slow and calm. You already did the worst thing a person could do to someone who loved them. I've got nothing left to lose. Then I hung up. And just like that, Natalie was on the outside. Still smug. Still cruel. Still unaware that her new life wasn't real, it was borrowed, and the bill was coming due. And me? I was starting over. Broken, yes, but free. Because sometimes the cleanest cut is the one you make yourself. It was 2 weeks after I walked out when the first crack in Natalie's fantasy life finally showed itself. She texted me out of nowhere. Hey, we need to talk. It's important. I stared at the screen for a minute, then tossed the phone aside. Let her stew. 3 hours later, another message. You're being petty. This affects both of us. I waited again. This time, until the next morning. I replied with 2 words. Talk to Voss. She hated Christina Voss. Despised her. Claimed she was turning me into a heartless machine. But Christina wasn't the one who left me for a man whose most complex thought was probably protein or pre-workout. That week, I found out Ethan had been fired from his gym job for sleeping with a client, one who was not my wife. Turns out, he had a pattern. Natalie wasn't his forever. She was just another ride. And now she was stuck. No backup plan. No money. No job of her own. And the man she thought would build her a future turned out to be a professional poser with a six-pack and no spine. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. One night, around midnight, I got a call. I was about to ignore it until I saw the contact photo, Natalie. Curiosity got the better of me. I answered, but didn't speak. Static. Then her voice. I messed up, she whispered. I know that now. I stayed quiet. He's not who I thought he was. He lied to me. Oh, I thought. The irony. She went on, her voice shaky. I thought I was trading up. I thought. God, I don't even know what I thought anymore. Still, I didn't say a word. I just let her pour her own poison. I wanted to feel something. I wanted passion. But all I got was chaos. That part hit differently. Because for so long I blamed myself. Thought maybe I hadn't done enough. Maybe I was too soft. Too predictable. Maybe I didn't bring enough spark to keep her interested. But now here she was, finally tasting the wild life she craved, and it turned to ash in her mouth. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said. But maybe we could talk? I almost laughed. Talk? After everything? After the lies, the sneaking around, the bedroom betrayal, and the smug smile when she threw me out of my own house? No. She didn't want me back. She wanted the life she threw away. The safety. The structure. The man who held her when the world burned. I hung up. The next day, she showed up outside my office. Hair disheveled. No makeup. Same clothes from the night before. Her eyes swollen like she hadn't slept. She waited for me in the parking lot like some lost puppy who didn't realize the leash had been cut. Please, she whispered when I approached. Just 5 minutes. I looked her in the eyes, the same ones that once held my world together, and said, you burned this bridge. Then you sold the ashes. She opened her mouth, but I was already walking past her. That was the moment I knew. She could beg. She could cry. She could crumble. But I would never, ever let her back into my life. Some people only understand the value of loyalty after they've destroyed the one person who gave it to them without question. And Natalie? She was about to learn that lesson, the hard way. Nearly 3 years passed. 3 quiet, powerful, revenge-laced years. I had rebuilt everything. New apartment. New car. A consulting firm that took off faster than I ever expected. I didn't just survive the storm Natalie dragged me into. I came out on the other side wearing a crown she never thought I'd earn. I traveled. Got in shape. Met people who didn't drain the life out of me with every conversation. I learned to laugh again without checking my tone, without fearing judgment or mockery. And I met someone. Sabrina. Warm, witty, stunning in a way that didn't rely on contouring and crop tops. She was the opposite of Natalie, no games, no lies. Just real. And for once, I felt like a man again, not a walking wallet or emotional punching bag. But fate, with its twisted timing, had something planned. We were at a high-end downtown restaurant. Fancy. Intimate. Live jazz humming in the background. Sabrina was mid-laugh when I felt a shift in the air. A stillness. Like someone had opened a crypt. And there she was. Natalie. Walking in on the arm of a man I didn't recognize. Older. Graying. Wearing a watch that screamed I'll lease everything. Her dress was tight, her heels high, but her glow? Gone. She looked tired. But what hit hardest wasn't how she looked, it was how she looked at me. Because the moment our eyes met, she froze. That, I'm still better than you smirk she used to wear vanished. Replaced by something I hadn't seen from her in years. Shock. Regret. Fear. I stood up and guided Sabrina by the hand toward the exit. Natalie's gaze followed us like a ghost chasing the living. Just as we reached the door, she stepped toward me. Jason. Sabrina turned to me. Friend of yours? I smiled politely. Old acquaintance. Natalie's lips parted. She looked from me to Sabrina, elegant, radiant Sabrina, and something flickered behind her eyes. A collapse. A memory. A mirror she wasn't ready to face. Can we talk? She asked, barely above a whisper. I didn't even glance at her. I've already said everything I needed to by walking away. Her companion blinked, confused. You know him? Natalie didn't answer. We walked out, the sound of jazz fading behind us. Once outside, Sabrina leaned closer. Better. I nodded. She smiled. You did well. I chuckled. Nah. I just finally stopped doing poorly. Later that night, curiosity got the better of me. I checked Natalie's social media. Her once glamorous feed had slowed to a crawl. Fewer vacation pics, more vague quotes about healing and self-love. No sign of Ethan. No baby. No fairy tale ending. Just a carousel of selfies and cryptic captions. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself. Pain changes people. Be careful who you trust. Each post screamed the same silent truth. She thought she was upgrading and ended up with a downgrade of a life. I didn't like seeing her broken, but I didn't feel sorry either. Because people like Natalie don't change until the lies they spin wrap around their own throat. And by the time they beg for air, everyone they ever used has already learned to breathe without them. 3 weeks after the restaurant, Natalie emailed me. Subject line. Closure. As if closure was something you could politely request after detonating a person's life and walking away from the rubble. The message started with a classic hook. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. She wasn't wrong, but I kept reading. She wrote about therapy, about self-discovery, about how her world fell apart after I left, conveniently forgetting she was the one who threw the first match. She never mentioned Ethan by name, but the absence said enough. Her lines were soft, practiced, polished. I made mistakes. I took you for granted. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. The kind of phrases you find in Pinterest apologies and Instagram quotes under pictures of sunsets. But the line that hit me most was this. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. I see it all now. Funny how truth has perfect vision when the damage is already done. I didn't reply. She didn't deserve me anymore. Not even a digital version of me. Still, for a few days after that message, I caught myself thinking. Not about getting back together. God, no. But about how deeply someone can fake a future with you. How well they can lie with a smile, kiss you goodnight after someone else's hands have been on them, and still call you babe in the morning. I replayed all the little moments, how she used to take her phone to the bathroom, how she suddenly cared about lingerie again after months of ignoring me, how she stopped saying, I love you, unless I said it first. Looking back, the signs were all there. But love makes you blind, then guilt makes you blame yourself when things fall apart. I remembered one fight we had, months before it all exploded. I had found a mysterious charge on our credit card, an Uber at 2 a.m. She claimed it was for her cousin, that she was helping her get home after a bad date. I believed her. Worse, I apologized for even asking. She twisted that moment like a pro. I can't believe you're accusing me, she said, voice trembling. Do you not trust me at all? I remember hugging her, telling her I was sorry. All the while, I was comforting the woman who was cheating on me in real time. Disgusting, but necessary. Because remembering those things reminded me exactly why I never wanted her back. Sabrina noticed I was quieter that week. She didn't press. Just kept showing up with coffee, bad puns, and real affection, the kind you don't have to beg for. Eventually, one night over dinner, I told her everything. The whole story. Not for sympathy. Not for validation. Just to let the last ghost out of the house. She didn't flinch. Didn't judge. When I finished, she reached across the table, squeezed my hand, and said, You don't owe her healing, but you deserve yours. And that's when I realized I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was free. Natalie might still be living in her echo chamber of regrets and inspirational quotes, chasing apologies from the mirror. But me? I was finally living for me. And no email, no apology, no fake tears would ever change that. It was a random Tuesday afternoon when I saw her again, Natalie. Not in a restaurant this time, not in heels and designer perfume. No, this time it was at the grocery store, of all places. I had just picked up a few things, some eggs, almond milk, a bottle of wine for dinner with Sabrina, when I turned the corner into the produce section and stopped dead in my tracks. There she was, holding an avocado, hair tied in a messy bun, no makeup, wearing a hoodie 3 sizes too big. It took her a second to notice me, and when she did, she dropped the avocado. Her eyes locked on mine, wide and startled, like she'd just seen a ghost, or worse, the man she thought she buried walked back into her life, stronger than ever. Jason, she breathed out. I didn't respond right away. I just looked at her. Not with anger. Not even pity. Just calm. Because in that moment, I saw everything. I saw the woman who once used my love like a doormat. I saw the manipulator who mocked my loyalty while hiding lies in her back pocket. But most of all, I saw someone who had finally come face to face with the reality she never prepared for. That I had won. Not in revenge. Not in some dramatic, look who's better now contest. But in peace. In clarity. In moving on while she was still dragging chains from a past she destroyed with her own hands. She stepped forward slowly. Can we talk? About what? I asked, voice steady. About how you threw away a life built on trust. Or about how you tried to come back when the fantasy fell apart. Her face tightened. She looked down. I've been thinking. About everything. You should have done that 3 years ago. Silence. She looked up again, her voice barely audible. I know I can't undo anything. I just wanted to say, you didn't deserve any of it. You were a good man. Too good. Now that hit different. Because I was. I was the good man. The one who stayed loyal. The one who worked extra hours to afford her lifestyle. The one who believed in forever when she was chasing temporary thrills. I nodded once. Thank you. She waited, like she expected me to say more. I didn't. I turned to walk away, but she called out again. Are you happy now? I stopped. Turned just enough so she could see my face. Yeah, I said. I actually am. And I meant it. That night, I sat across from Sabrina on our balcony, the city lights painting her face in gold. She laughed at something I said, leaned her head on my shoulder, and sighed the kind of sigh that comes from deep peace. No lies. No games. Just real love. And I thought back to that avocado aisle. To the way Natalie looked at me. Not with love, but with loss. Not the loss of me, but of what I represented. Stability. Loyalty. A future. She gave it all away for a spark. A thrill. A sweaty compliment from a boy in a tank top. And when it fizzled out, she thought maybe she could come back and pick up the pieces. But by then, I had already turned them into something better. Something stronger. Someone new. So if you're reading this, and you're that guy sitting in the dark, questioning your worth because someone you trusted lit a match to your world, listen to me. She didn't break you. She revealed herself. And that pain you're feeling? That's just the space where the healing starts. You won't just recover. You'll rebuild. And one day, when she sees you again, she won't recognize what you've become. But she'll know one thing for sure. She lost. Her words didn't just sting, they detonated. She slammed her glass on the table and hissed. You were never enough for me, Alex. While you were drowning in hospital bills and chasing hopeless dreams, I was building a real life with Mark. He gave me purpose, gave me 2 sons, and made me feel alive. We used your bed, under your roof, for almost 9 years. And your own sister helped us cover it up. She always said Mark was the brother she wished she had. I didn't blink. Not once. I stood up, calm as ice, looked her in the eye, and said, Noted, Emma. Then I walked out. That moment, that exact second when the glass hit the oak table and cracked at the base, splitting like my trust, my reality, it became the fulcrum of my entire life. I didn't just walk out of the room. I walked out of the version of me that tolerated betrayal disguised as marriage. Let me take you back, just a few weeks before that nuclear explosion in my dining room, when everything still looked normal. Emma used to be sweet. At least I thought she was. Blonde, classy, charming enough to fool my friends and ruthless enough to make my gut whisper, run before I ever said, I do. I was too in love or too blind. Maybe both. It started with little things. Perfume I didn't recognize. Her phone suddenly face down every time I entered the room. My gut began tapping me on the shoulder more often, like a friend trying to get my attention before the ship hits the iceberg. We had been married for 11 years. 11 years of building a future I thought we shared. Mortgage, shared debts, sick nights with our daughter Chloe, family barbecues with her parents who always looked at me like I was a mistake Emma would one day fix. Then there was that Saturday morning. She was laughing on the phone, in the kitchen, early. Too early for her usual grumpy self. I came down for coffee, and she jumped like she'd touched a live wire, instantly snapping into this robotic, snappy tone. Oh hey, I was just talking to Tina. Tina, her gym buddy. Tina, who lived across town and couldn't hold a secret if you stapled her mouth shut. Tell her I said hi. I said. She nodded too fast, still clutching the phone like it might escape. That was the first real crack. A week later, I noticed the hotel charges. I was paying bills online, sorting through statements when I saw it. The Fairmont, charged twice in 1 week. We hadn't been to a hotel in over a year, not since our anniversary stay that ended in her saying she was too tired and sleeping fully dressed. I didn't say anything that night. Instead, I started watching how late she came home, how quickly she shut her laptop when I walked into the room, how suddenly my sister Lauren stopped calling me after being practically glued to Emma for years. Then came the photos. I didn't even look for them. They found me, literally dropped into my lap. A brown envelope, no return address, slid into our mailbox with "To Alex. You need to see this," scribbled in rushed pen. Inside, photos of Emma and Mark. Him pressing her against the side of a black SUV, her leg wrapped around him like a goddamn yoga pose. Another of them walking hand in hand, smiling like they were the ones who just signed the marriage certificate. Mark was my college roommate, my best man, godfather to our daughter, a man who once held my dying father's hand and told him, "I'll look out for your boy." Yeah, he did. With my wife. In my house. For 9 whole years. 9 years. You start doing math at that point, like a broken calculator that keeps short-circuiting. What was I doing during those years? Working late shifts? Picking up extra hours to pay for Chloe's asthma meds? Planning our beach trip, she bailed on last minute claiming food poisoning? No, she wasn't sick. She was with Mark. Playing house. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, I printed every photo. Laid them out on the dining room table like evidence in a trial. I waited for her to get home. She waltzed in, humming some song she never sang around me anymore, tossing her keys on the counter. She stopped when she saw them. Her face paled, lips parted, but no tears. No apology. Just that icy, bitch's stare that said, "What are you gonna do, Alex?" Then came her monologue. That speech. Those words that'll never leave my skull. "You were never enough for me. The rest, you know." I said, "Noted, Emma." And I walked. But I didn't vanish. I rewrote the ending. And believe me, I didn't write a fairy tale that you'd think a betrayal that deep would crash into your life like a freight train. But no, it seeps in. Quiet. Creeping. Like black mold behind your bedroom wall. By the time you smell the rot, it's already everywhere. After I walked out that night, I didn't go to a hotel. I drove. Just drove. Through back roads, neighborhoods I hadn't seen in years, even past the old apartment Emma and I lived in when things were still simple. Before the lies. Before Mark. I ended up parked outside a 24-hour diner, staring at a neon, open sign like it held answers. Inside, I sat down, ordered black coffee, and pulled out my phone. I wasn't ready to call anyone yet. Not my sister. Not Chloe. God, especially not Chloe. But I was ready to look. You see, betrayal doesn't just appear, it leaves footprints. And now I had the eyes to follow them. First, I searched old texts. I had a habit of never deleting anything, and for once, my digital hoarding paid off. Back in 2016, there was a weird message from Lauren, my sister, saying, "Hope you made it back okay. Emma said you left early." I didn't remember leaving anything early that weekend. I was at a work retreat. Emma stayed home. More texts followed. Pieces. Little slips. Things I had once read without reading. But now they screamed. "Lauren, don't worry. I'll cover for you if Alex asks where you were. Emma, you're a lifesaver." Again. "Lauren, you owe me wine and silence." Wine and silence. I should have seen it. My own sister. She was always close to Emma, but I thought it was just a sister-in-law bond. Nope. It was a cover-up network. And Mark? I dug into his social media. Private, locked down. But he was lazy with tags. A photo from a company retreat in Cabo 2 years ago. He's holding a glass of champagne. The reflection in his sunglasses showed a woman. Blurry, but unmistakable. Emma's long blonde hair. Her signature heart-shaped necklace. The one I gave her for our 5th anniversary. I called his office pretending to be a client. Receptionist chirped, "He's out today," but his assistant Emma can take a message. His assistant. She told me she hated his company. That she was helping temporarily after he lost his admin. That it was just to pay down bills. But she'd been working with him for 3 years. I started compiling. Photos. Screenshots. Emails. I even printed receipts from our joint account. Dinners I never attended. Uber rides to unfamiliar addresses. Lingerie charges from when I was out of town. I wasn't just wounded anymore. I was sharpening. Turning pain into purpose. The worst part? Our bed. One of the pictures, the ones from that anonymous envelope, was taken through our upstairs window. Mark's car in the driveway, late night. Bedroom light on. Curtains slightly parted. Two silhouettes. Tangled. Laughing. I remembered that night. I had been in Chicago, giving a presentation to a board that promised me a raise they never delivered. I called her before bed. She sounded sleepy. Said she'd had a long day. Told me she loved me. While Mark was inside me and Emma's shared space. Using our sheets. My pillow. You know what kind of fury builds in your chest when you realize your enemy used your toothbrush holder? That they stood where you stood every morning, tying a tie, while you were trusting them with your life. It's not just pain. It's humiliation. It's like being set on fire by the people you loved most, and they don't even have the decency to pretend they're sorry. I didn't sleep that night. I went back to the house the next day. She was gone. Gym or wherever liars go to clear their conscience. I packed a bag. My documents. Some cash. Then I walked upstairs. I stripped the bed. Every sheet, every pillowcase, the mattress protector, gone. I poured bleach on the mattress. Left the windows open. Made sure she'd walk in and know that nothing about this house would feel like home again. And then I sat at the kitchen table. Waited for her. I wasn't planning a scene. I wanted to hear it from her mouth. I needed it. The truth. Raw. Ugly. When the front door opened, she walked in carrying a green smoothie like it was any other Tuesday. I slid the photos across the table. No words. Just the proof. Her face froze. She didn't speak right away. Just stared. Then she laughed. Laughed. And that, right there, was the moment she turned from wife to enemy. She laughed. Not nervously. Not with guilt. Not like someone caught red-handed. No. Emma laughed like I'd just told her a joke about a dog wearing a suit. She stood there, smoothie in hand, and let out a deep, bitter laugh, shaking her head like I was the idiot in the room. You really waited for me? She said. Walking past me like this was some mild inconvenience. That's rich. I didn't move. Just sat still at the table, arms crossed, watching her. She set her keys down like she owned the place, which, technically, she still did, and gave the photos a glance like they were grocery receipts. Where did you get these? She asked, finally meeting my eyes. No panic. Just calculation. Does it matter? I said. They're real. She rolled her eyes and dropped into the chair across from me. Okay, fine. You found out. What now? You want me to cry? Beg? Apologize? She took a long sip of her smoothie. Grow up, Alex. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I gave you everything, I said quietly. Time. Money. Trust. I gave you years, Emma. She snorted. Yeah, and you were so busy being the noble provider that you forgot to see me. You were always gone, working, stressing, trying to fix the world. But you never fixed this. I thought I was building something for us, I replied. No, you were building something for you, she snapped, and dragging me along like a prop. I could feel my heart thudding in my chest, my fingers curling into fists. But I didn't raise my voice. I wouldn't give her that. So you decided to punish me by bringing him into our bed? She smiled. It wasn't punishment, sweetheart. It was rescue. Rescue. I swear I felt something crack behind my ribs. She leaned in, elbows on the table like we were just two old friends chatting about regrets. Mark listened. He saw me. And yeah, it started physical, but it became something deeper. Something real. That's my best friend, I said. The man who toasted at our wedding. Who held Chloe when she was born. She didn't blink. And he was still a better husband than you ever were. Those words, they didn't just hurt. They hollowed me out. That's when she dropped the bomb. The one that turned betrayal into absolute devastation. She slammed her glass on the table and hissed. You were never enough for me, Alex. While you were drowning in hospital bills and chasing hopeless dreams, I was building a real life with Mark. He gave me purpose, gave me 2 sons, and made me feel alive. We used your bed, under your roof, for almost 9 years. And your own sister helped us cover it up. She always said Mark was the brother she wished she had. The room went still. My lungs forgot how to breathe. 2 sons? She never told me Mark had kids. I thought they were his exes from before. But no. She said gave me 2 sons. Meaning they were hers too. Meaning those boys I saw once, at a barbecue Mark invited us to, were mine in no way. And Lauren, my sister, my blood, she helped them. For years. I stood up slowly, chest tight, but my face calm. I looked her dead in the eye and said the only words I had left. Noted, Emma. Then I turned and walked out. No shouting. No breaking things. No begging her to explain. I gave her the silence she deserved and left her in the wreckage she'd built. As I walked to the car, everything inside me burned. But on the outside, I was ice. That was the moment I buried the old version of me. The version who loved blindly, who trusted too easily, who forgave too quickly. And from that moment on, I started rewriting the ending. When I stepped outside that day, I expected the world to feel different, like something huge had just shattered, and surely, the ground should crack under my feet. But everything looked normal. The sky was still blue. The neighbors were still mowing their lawn. Life just kept going, like nothing happened. But inside me, it was like someone had detonated a grenade and walked away smiling. I sat in my car for maybe an hour. No music, no calls, just the hum of the engine and the sound of my own breathing, shallow and ragged. I looked in the rearview mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back. His eyes were red. His jaw clenched so tight you could hear his teeth grind. And his hands, God, they wouldn't stop shaking. I wasn't angry at first. Not really. I was something worse. Empty. It's like my emotions checked out. I had just lost a wife, a best friend, a sister, and maybe even a decade of my life to a lie, and yet I felt nothing. A numbness so heavy it crushed my lungs. I drove to the old warehouse where I used to work on my car. I had the key. Emma never liked that place, said it smelled like rust and regret. Funny, that's exactly what I needed. I sat on the concrete floor, leaning against the back of my half-finished '68 Mustang, and I cried. Not the movie kind. Not one perfect tear down the cheek. No, this was primal. Gut-wrenching. I was gasping, sobbing, punching the floor like that might undo what she'd done. Like it might unkiss Mark's lips from her skin. Like it might erase the image of their shadows in our bedroom window. You don't just lose someone you love. You lose a version of yourself that existed only because you believed in that person. I remembered our wedding day. How her hand shook when she said, "I do." I thought it was nerves. Now I wonder if it was guilt. I remembered holding Chloe in that hospital room while Emma slept, exhausted and glowing. How she smiled in her sleep and murmured, "Our little family." How I kissed her forehead and whispered, "Forever." Was it all just performance? Was I ever loved? That thought, that question, hurt more than anything. Because even betrayal is easier to swallow than the idea that maybe you were just a placeholder. A paycheck. A fallback plan. Over the next few days, I went dark. No calls. No texts. I didn't answer Lauren, who finally had the nerve to message me with a lame, "Let's talk." I didn't respond to Emma's fake-ass attempt at closure. I hope one day you can understand. Understand what? That she built a second life inside mine. That she smiled at me across the dinner table, all while mapping out an escape route with my best friend? Understand that she used my sister to clean up their mess? No, there would be no understanding. No compromise. No half-forgiveness to keep the peace. I made a vow that week. Not to Emma. Not to God. Not even to Chloe. Just to myself. I will never let anyone shrink me again. I will never love blindly, trust carelessly, or tolerate crumbs when I gave the whole damn feast. Emma thought she ended me. She thought this would break me. But it didn't. It woke me up. I wasn't the man I used to be. That man died on the kitchen floor next to a smoothie glass and a pile of photos. The man who stood up and said noted was someone else entirely. Someone dangerous. Someone who was about to take his life back. Piece by piece. A week passed. 7 full days of silence. No Emma. No Lauren. No Mark. Not even Chloe, though that part wasn't her fault. She was away at summer camp. And thank God for that. She didn't need to witness the nuclear fallout of her parents' marriage. That week, I lived in my car some nights, the Mustang's leather seats worn but familiar. I showered at the gym, ate when I remembered, slept when my brain stopped replaying every moment I ever believed Emma was loyal. And then one morning, I woke up, different. I didn't feel better, but I felt clearer, sharper, like something inside me had clicked into place. I wasn't going to let this become my life's tragedy. No, I was going to turn it into my damn origin story. I started with the lawyer. Her name was Deborah Klein, sharp as a scalpel and twice as deadly. I told her everything, every photo, every receipt, every betrayal. She didn't flinch, just jotted notes, occasionally glancing up like she was already thinking 10 steps ahead. Adultery, fraud, misuse of joint funds. If you want full custody, we can make that happen, she said. And if those boys really are Mark's and Emma's, that'll come out in the deposition. Trust me, I didn't even have to say yes. My silence was enough. Then came the bank. I froze every joint account, transferred my salary to a new private one, canceled her cards, except one. I left the gas card open, just to let her wonder when it would get declined. Petty? Maybe. But after 9 years of being her safety net, it felt good to cut the cord. Then, the house. I didn't want it. Every wall smelled like betrayal. Every room held ghosts. But I knew Emma wanted to keep it, because Mark helped renovate it, because her boys had a swing set in the yard. So I offered to buy her out, for half of its current market value. She laughed when she got the email, replied with one sentence. You're hilarious. My reply? You're homeless in 30 days. See you in court. I filed for divorce the same day. But the biggest decision, the one that twisted my stomach, was Chloe. I loved my daughter more than life itself. And no matter how poisonous her mother turned out to be, I couldn't erase that bond. She was still our daughter, even if our marriage had died a brutal, public death. I asked Deborah what it would take for me to get primary custody. She asked if I had proof Emma's been an unfit parent. She cheated, I said. She lied. She's built an entire second family in secret. Deborah tilted her head. Cheating doesn't make her a bad mother. Not legally. So I did what I had to. I started collecting everything. Photos of Emma leaving Mark's place late at night while Chloe was home alone. Notes from Chloe's school showing her slipping grades. Voice recordings of Emma blowing off parenting responsibilities. I became a quiet storm, patient, building strength, waiting to strike. I also talked to Chloe. That was the hardest conversation of my life. We sat on a park bench near the duck pond she used to love when she was little. She looked up at me, confused, sensing the weight of something she didn't understand. Sweetheart, I said, Mom and I aren't going to be living together anymore. Her eyes filled immediately. Did I do something wrong? God, that sentence shattered me more than Emma ever could. No, baby, you didn't do anything. This is between me and Mom. And no matter what happens, I'm always here for you. Always. She nodded slowly, wiping her face. Will I still see you? I swallowed hard. Yes, I promise. I'm going to make sure of that. And I meant it. Every decision I made from that moment on was about protecting Chloe, giving her the kind of love her mother was too selfish to provide. I wasn't just walking away from Emma. I was building a world where Chloe could grow up knowing what real love looked like. Emma took my loyalty, my trust, and my dignity. But she wasn't taking my daughter. Not now. Not ever. Fallout doesn't happen all at once. It creeps in, quiet, like smoke under a door before the fire erupts. 3 days after filing for divorce, the phone calls began. Emma first. Blocked. Then Lauren. Ignored. Then Mark. I stared at his name on my screen. Mark H. The same name that used to show up with texts like Game Night Saturday or You Good, Brother? Now, nothing but poison. He left a voicemail. His voice was calm, fake composed. The kind of calm that masks guilt under layers of arrogance. Alex, I don't know what Emma told you, but this wasn't planned. It just happened. Things between you two have been broken for a while. I stepped in because she was falling apart, man. You weren't there. He actually said that. Like his betrayal was a service. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say to someone who stood beside me at my wedding and then crawled into my wife's bed for nearly a decade. His words were nothing but vomit wrapped in apologies. But Emma? Emma didn't go down quiet. She showed up at my office. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was halfway through reviewing a project brief when the receptionist buzzed. There's a woman here, says her name's Emma Hayes. I nearly choked on my coffee. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and walked out to the front lobby. And there she was, like a storm cloud in heels. Wearing a low-cut black dress she probably thought would distract me. It didn't. Can we talk? She said, lips tight. Not here, I muttered. Follow me. I led her to the parking garage, where concrete echoed every step. Private. Cold. Perfect. She turned on the waterworks fast. Tears that looked real, probably rehearsed in the mirror. Alex, please, she sniffed. You blindsided me. I thought we could handle this like adults. Adults. I said. You lied for 9 years. Slept with my best friend in my house. Built a family behind my back. Adults don't do that. She looked down. I didn't mean for it to get that far. I laughed. You mean you didn't mean to get caught? Silence. Then she exploded. You know what? Fine. Blame me. Be the victim. But don't act like you were some perfect husband. You were always working, always somewhere else. I needed more than just someone who paid the bills. So you took Mark? I asked, and dragged my sister into it. She offered. Emma spat. Lauren said she'd help because you were always so clueless. That hit harder than I expected. I want the house, she said suddenly. Like her nerves flipped to greed. You can have the car, the boat, whatever. But the house is mine. I stepped closer, inches away. You had 9 years to build something with Mark, I whispered. Why don't you ask him to buy you a house? She clenched her jaw. And those boys? I added. You lied to everyone. To me. To them. To Chloe. You destroyed a family so you could play pretend with the guy who used to pass out on our couch. I'm still their mother, she growled. Not mine, I said. And soon, not my daughter's guardian either. She froze. What? I let it sink in. I'm filing for full custody. You can keep your lies, your affair, and your sad little empire. I'm keeping Chloe. Her face twisted, rage, fear, ego, all crashing at once. You're gonna regret this, she hissed. No, I said, walking away. I already regretted staying. That night, Lauren tried to call again. I finally picked up. Her voice cracked instantly. Alex, I didn't mean for it to get this far. Don't, I interrupted. Don't call me. Don't text. Don't pretend you're family. You buried that the day you chose her over me. But I love you, she whimpered. No, I said, you love secrets. Click. The fallout wasn't just emotional, it was nuclear. And now, I was clearing the wreckage. One lie at a time. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's surgical, precise. It doesn't come from rage, it comes from clarity. And I was finally clear. I wasn't out for blood. I didn't want to scream in court or burn down everything we once had. No, I wanted Emma to feel it. Not just the loss, the insignificance. I wanted her to realize she was never as clever as she thought. So I started where it hurt most, reputation. Emma had built a little social circle in town. PDA meetings, charity brunches, neighborhood gossip hours. She wore that fake perfect wife image like a tiara. Smiling, lying, keeping the other suburban Stepford moms convinced her life was goals. So I ruined it. I didn't send anonymous letters or start drama on Facebook. I was smarter than that. I leaked one video, just one, from the security camera I'd installed in the hallway years ago after a break-in scare. It caught Mark walking out of our bedroom, barefoot, shirtless, at 2:37 a.m. on a Tuesday. Emma followed 2 minutes later, kissing him, pulling his shirt to her face and laughing. I didn't even add a caption, just sent it anonymously to 5 of the town's biggest gossip conduits. It spread like wildfire. Emma's phone blew up. She started losing invites. The church group paused her membership. Her little yoga crew stopped showing up for coffee. People she gossiped with were suddenly gossiping about her. She texted me in all caps. Embarrassing me won't fix you. No, I thought. But it'll finally show people who you really are. Next, I took care of Mark. Mark had a company. Small business and logistics. Nothing flashy. But he prided himself on ethics, on his clean image, especially since he was courting a deal with a major client. A client I happened to know through an old college buddy who now sat on that company's board. So I made a few calls, shared some documentation, a few concerns about Mark's personal choices and how he'd been using business trips as rendezvous getaways. Tossed in a quiet note about misused corporate funds. Emma had used Mark's business card for spa treatments and lingerie. The deal fell through. Mark's company lost the contract. Word got around. He fired Emma the same week. Yeah, fired her. Apparently, she wasn't the long-term partner he promised she was. Just a liability once the fallout hit his wallet. When Chloe came back from camp, I didn't say much. I didn't poison her against her mother. I let her see for herself. Emma tried to play the doting mom. Tried to invite Chloe to stay longer weekends. But Chloe was sharp. She picked up on the tension, the distance, the bitterness behind Emma's tight smiles. One night, Chloe asked me, "Did Mom really love Mark more than you?" I looked her in the eyes and said, "Mom loved herself more than anyone else." That was enough. But the revenge that mattered most? Court. Deborah came armed like a general in a legal war. Emails, videos, witness statements, financial records. Emma tried to cry, claimed she was pressured, manipulated, mentally exhausted. She said she had emotional needs that weren't being met. The judge didn't care. I got primary custody. She got weekends, with supervision at first. She cried outside the courtroom. Not out of love, out of loss. She lost her social standing, her lover, her income, her daughter, her home. I didn't gloat. I didn't rub it in. I just walked past her, holding Chloe's hand. Emma called after me. Alex, wait. I paused, turned slightly. I never meant to hurt you, she said, voice cracking. I looked her in the eye. Calm. Steady. You didn't just hurt me, Emma, I said. You taught me who I am without you. Then I walked away. Again. But this time, it wasn't escape. It was victory. That it's funny how silence becomes your best teacher once the noise fades. After everything, after the courtroom, the custody battle, the betrayals, the lies, I didn't go out celebrating. I didn't pop champagne or post some cryptic, victorious quote online. I just sat in the living room of my new apartment, in a chair I bought myself, holding a warm mug of coffee and breathing. For the first time in years, it was quiet. Real, peaceful silence. And it didn't hurt. The first thing I learned? You can't save someone who's committed to sinking you. I spent so many years trying to be enough for Emma, working longer hours, taking on more projects, planning anniversaries she forgot, defending her coldness as stress or just a phase. I gave everything hoping she'd finally look at me the way she looked at him. But now I know, it was never about what I lacked. It was about what she craved. Chaos, attention, control. I wasn't a husband to her. I was an accessory, a background character in a drama she directed. She wasn't looking for love. She was looking for worship. The second thing? Loyalty is a choice. So is betrayal. What Emma did wasn't a mistake. It was a series of choices, calculated, repeated, deliberate. She didn't trip and fall into Mark's arms. She crawled there, smiling, while I slept 3 feet away. And Lauren? She didn't accidentally keep the secret. She helped bury the truth like it was her weekend hobby. And the worst part? They both justified it. Emma said, "You weren't enough." Lauren said, "I didn't want to hurt you." But betrayal always wears a mask. Sometimes it looks like love. Sometimes it sounds like family. But the feeling? You'll know it when it hits. And when it does, don't ignore it. Third, your peace is more powerful than revenge. Yes, I hit back. I exposed the truth. I took control. But the real revenge was thriving. It was rebuilding a life they thought they'd burned to ash. Every smile Chloe gives me now, every night I sleep without wondering whose cologne is on my sheets, every time I walk past a mirror and don't feel shame. That's the win. Emma? She's still spiraling. Mark dumped her for a coworker. She's back living with her mother. Lauren's influencer brand took a hit after a few quiet leaks about her involvement. Karma didn't need my help. It just needed time. And me? I started coaching again. Basketball at the local rec center. Kids who still believe in loyalty, effort, teamwork. It reminded me what it feels like to be trusted. To be looked at with eyes that see worth, not opportunity. Chloe's with me most days. We talk openly. No secrets. She knows the truth. Not all the dirty details, but enough. Enough to understand that love isn't supposed to hurt. That being loved means being respected. And if you're wondering whether I'll ever love again, I will. But not like before. Not blindly. Not desperately. Next time, I'll love with my eyes open. With standards. With boundaries. Because now I know what I'm worth, and I'll never discount myself for anyone again. If you're reading this and you've been through betrayal, whether it was your partner, your friend, your own family, here's what I'd tell you. Feel the pain. All of it. But don't stay there. Grieve what you lost, even if it was fake. Because your feelings were real. Your love was real. And that deserves mourning. But once the storm passes, stand up. Stand up and start building. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove to yourself that they never defined you in the first place. I was broken. Now I'm whole. And the man I became? He's not someone Emma would recognize. But that's okay. Because she doesn't matter anymore. The ending isn't hers. It's mine. And I'm just getting started.